When we wake up every day, we have to make a big decision. What will we say to ourselves that will determine what we do? We fight a quiet but strong battle that shapes not only what we do, but also who we are. It's not just sounds that words have weight. They're thoughts that we carry with us like flashlights in the dark. People in ancient times, called Stoics, knew that our inner language is what leads our lives. Marcus Aurelius was both a philosopher and a ruler. He led his army with strategy, but his biggest fight was with himself. It was every morning that he wrote down words and thoughts that kept him grounded and told him of his purpose, his power, and his humanity. In a world full of noise, distractions, and hurry, those facts are stronger than ever. But it's not enough to just repeat random lines. You have to choose the words that will shape you and how you affect other people on purpose. This movie isn't just a list of common affirmations. It's a deep dive into the words that the world's greatest thinkers have left us. These words teach us how to stay calm in the face of chaos, how to grow from difficulties, and how to find meaning in every moment. It may seem easy, but speaking clearly and firmly to yourself has a huge amount of power. As Epictetus said, we are not upset by events, but by the stories we tell ourselves about them. If you change the words you use, the world will change too. You will learn today the facts you can tell yourself every day, not to run away from being real, but to face it head on. Are you ready to start changing your life? 1. How to keep yourself in mind of who you are. In the early morning, there is a time when the mind is clear and fears and outside noises have not yet spread. That's when you should ask yourself, who am I really? Not as a fun activity, but as a way to remember who you are, what you stand for, and your core values. The Stoics knew that identity is not something that is given to you. It is something that you choose to make. Don't forget to behave like the man you want to be, Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations. This is a strong invitation. It's not about what other people think of you, but about who you choose to be every day. It's not just a phrase to tell yourself, remember who you are. It's a way to stay grounded in a world that is always trying to change, confuse, or remake you. You can use this saying as a shield to remind yourself of your beliefs, goals, and principles. Epictetus says, never say that you have lost something, rather say that you have returned it. This is a good example of how we are more than our situations. We are not our things, our titles, or the labels that other people put on us. We are our deeds, our choices, and the way we live our lives. The first step to being real is to talk to yourself with purpose. Think over and over that you are not a subject of chance, but the author of your own story. This will make you feel different. You become more aware of the choices you make, more aware of your habits, and more devoted to your beliefs. Heraclitus said, a man's character is his destiny. You start to make your own way when you act from the truth of who you are. You should ask yourself, am I being who I want to be, or just what circumstances require? Every time you feel lost. That answer might make you feel bad, but it's the first step to real growth. This simple daily lesson gets you ready to face the world with purpose and clarity, because when you know who you are, nothing else can define you. 2. What success means now. People around you are always pushing you to get things that aren't yours, like money, status, or praise. The Stoics, though, knew that real success isn't measured by what you get, but by what you build inside yourself. Marcus Aurelius said it best, the soul becomes what it values. When you tell yourself every day, my success is internal, You go against what other people think you should be doing and remind yourself that your life's worth doesn't depend on what other people think of it. Epictetus said that we set our own standards and that looking for success in other people is like trying to fill a boat with a broken bottom. This thought is not an excuse for being average. It's a call to see things from a different point of view. If you think of success as staying true to your values, facing difficulties with grace, or staying calm in the face of chaos, then you will know that every time you take a step toward becoming the best version of yourself, you are already successful. Seneca said, "Being in charge of yourself is the greatest wealth." Just think about it. What good is it to reach your goals if you lose control of your time, your relationships, or your peace of mind? So, telling yourself this truth every day helps you develop the mindset that your success doesn't depend on what other people see, but on how you feel when you look in the mirror. Changing the way you think about success doesn't mean giving up on your dreams. It means going after them with a strong base, because success that isn't from within is fragile, but one based on your own strength can stand up to anything. 3. Stay calm. We live in a world that values speed, haste, and constant action, but the Stoics knew that real strength comes from waiting to act until you are calm. Marcus Aurelius said it best, "Making peace with your feelings makes you stronger than taking over cities." It is not a sign of weakness to constantly remind yourself that calm is my power. You don't have to push down your feelings. You just have to notice them, try to understand them, and not let them control you. Peace of mind is not a sign of weakness. It's what lets you see things clearly and act on reason instead of emotion. Epictetus said that there are two parts to every event: what happens and how you choose to understand it. When you stay calm, you can pick the meaning that makes you stronger instead of the one that makes you weaker. It may not seem important, but stopping is what makes the difference between a reactive life and a mindful life. Dealing with problems in a calm way doesn't mean you ignore them. It means you deal with them from a place of balance. Even if the storm is bad around you, if you stay calm, you will be like a tower that stands strong in the storm. "We can't change the wind, but we can change the sails," said Seneca. For you to be strong, you don't have to win every fight. You just need to be calm every day. Not letting outside noise shake up your inner world is what makes you strong. By thinking about this idea every day, you get ready to face problems with more knowledge, less damage, and an unbreakable will. Being calm is not only a safe place to be, it's also good for you. 4. Everything is being taught. If you fail, most people think you're weak or can't do something. The Stoics, on the other hand, told us that loss is just a lesson. Life is not about waiting for the storm to pass, but about learning to dance in the rain, said Seneca. If you tell yourself everything is learning, you start to see problems and mistakes as opportunities to learn, not as problems that need to be solved. Problems are opportunities to grow, as long as you are humble enough to see them for what they are. Stoics knew that what we do with our problems is what makes us who we are, not our situations. Epictetus said that life is like a banquet. You will be given dishes you didn't expect, but you can choose how to react to them. At first, hardship may seem bad, but if you give it some thought, you will find that it always teaches you something useful. The important thing is to change the story. Don't ask yourself why something happened. Ask yourself what happened. Why should you do something different next time if something went wrong? What good did losing something do for you? Marcus Aurelius said it best. What stops you from acting causes you to act. That which stands in the way becomes the way. When you think this way, You stop being afraid of failing. You stop seeing falls as the end of the road and see them as a necessary part of the process. It does not matter how many times you fall. What matters is that each step, even the one you are not sure of, moves you forward. When you say this truth every day, it changes the way you see life. It stops being a list of wins and mistakes and starts being a continuous sequence of growth. You become more like the best version of yourself with each event, good or bad. This is because when everything is learning, you are always moving forward. 5. You don't have to decide everything. We are always fighting to get control of our lives, including the people we meet, the things that happen, and the effects. But the Stoics knew that wanting absolutes is what makes people suffer. Some things are in our power, others are not. Epictetus said, to sum it up, "It feels good to tell yourself every day, I don't need to control everything." This phrase helps you remember that things won't always go the way you want them to. But that doesn't mean you can't fight back. In fact, real power doesn't come from managing other people or things. It comes from controlling yourself. When you try to control something that you can't, you only end up frustrated. It's like putting your hands up to the wind and expecting it to stop. But when you accept what you can't change and focus on what you can, you find a peace that not many people feel. People often have problems in life because they try to control things they can't and ignore things they can control. You can't control what other people do, but you can control how you respond to them. Even though you can't change the weather, you can pick whether to bring a cover or dance in the rain. When you accept what is, you stop wasting your energy on fighting what isn't going to happen and put your energy into what does count. Adapt to whatever comes your way like a fire that turns everything thrown at it into more fuel to grow. This is what it means to let go of control, taking life as it is, not how you would like it to be, and making the most of every situation. It's not about giving up when you keep telling yourself this truth. It's about knowing the difference between things you can change and things you have to accept. To walk lighter, you have to let go of the weight of power that you don't need. You find that you already have everything you need to get by when you stop trying to take over the world. 6. Right now is enough. A lot of the time, we get stuck between the weight of the past and the unknown of the future. The Stoics ask us to think about how many times we have missed the chance to enjoy the moment because we are stuck on things we can't change or things that haven't happened yet. Aristotle said, "The person who dwells on the past or worries about the future misses the only moment in which he has real power, the present." The present moment is enough, is a way to tell yourself to stop racing your thoughts and focus on the only place where life exists, right now. The past is not a jail, but a master. Without a doubt, you made mistakes and choices that you may wish you hadn't made, but letting them define your present is not required. No one goes back to the past to start over, but anyone can start now to write a different ending, said Seneca. When you hold on to the past, you miss the chance to change the future. But the future is a blank page, and worrying about what might happen there drains your energy, making it impossible to act in the present. Epictetus said it very well. Do not wish that things happen the way you want them to. Be happy if they happen the way they do. Being in the present doesn't mean ignoring what's going to happen or not learning from the past. It means becoming aware that you only have power in this moment. What you do now, what choices you make now, and how you feel in this very moment are what make up your life. Every day, telling yourself this fact breaks the invisible chains that hold you back from times that don't exist anymore or haven't come yet. You learn to enjoy the little things, like hearing someone close laugh, feeling the wind on your face, and just being alive. You find that you don't need anything else to start living life to the fullest when the present moment is enough. 7. Thoughts are not you. How many times have you felt like your thoughts were taking over? Sometimes that voice inside your head that attacks, worries, or imagines the worst can feel like an unstoppable force. But the Stoics knew something very important. You are not your thoughts. You are only the observer of them. As Marcus Aurelius said, "The mind is colored by the thoughts we let into it. Don't let thoughts that aren't yours take over." Telling yourself every day, "My thoughts are not me," will help you remember that you can't control what comes up in your mind, but you can choose how to deal with it. It's like sitting by a river. Your ideas are the waves, and you can choose to join them or just watch them pass. Epictetus said that what moves us is not what is happening around us, but how we think about it. We start to suffer by letting a thought live on in our minds and turn into a feeling or deed. You start to take back control of your inner life when you tell yourself every day that your feelings are not the truth, but just a part of what you are going through. When you're having a bad thought, ask yourself, is this true, or is this just how I see it? This activity might look easy, but it will change your life. When you question your thoughts, they lose their power over you. Seneca said, "We suffer more in our imagination than in reality." Realizing this is the first step to freeing your mind from its chains. Not ignoring your thoughts is not the same thing as watching them with detachment. It means facing them with clarity. If you have a thought that bothers you, think about whether it is helpful, based on truth, or just a response. This space between you and the thought gives you freedom and clarity. And if you think about things this way every day, your mind stops being a battleground and starts being a calm place. Thoughts come and go, but you stay. When you realize this, you know that you are more than the stories your mind makes up. You can choose which stories to feed and which ones to let go. 8. You're better than you think. When things are hard, our minds tend to question our skills. We tell ourselves that we're not strong enough, that life is too heavy for us, and that we can't handle it. But the Stoics taught us a truth that we often forget. Everyone has an unbreakable power inside them. Sometimes we have to face storms to find it. If you are upset about something outside yourself, the pain does not come from that thing itself, but from how you value it, and you have the power to change that value at any time, said Marcus Aurelius. Saying to yourself every day, "I am stronger than I think," brings out your inner strength. It serves as a reminder that problems are not enemies, but chances to learn how to deal with them, change, and grow. Fire tests gold, and trouble makes the brave. It's normal to feel scared or unsure when you face a challenge, but the important thing is not to stop there. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this, instead of focusing on how hard it is? What kind of skill or toughness can I get here? Every problem you face can be turned into a tool to help you grow as a person. Epictetus said, "No man is free who cannot master himself." Being strong doesn't mean not feeling pain or doubt. It means being able to keep going even when you do. It's not about avoiding problems. It's about meeting them head on and being sure you can get through them. If you think about this every day, you're not tricking yourself. You're connecting with your real self, because even in the worst situations, you can choose how to respond, and that's where your strength shines through. Think about all the times you felt like you couldn't go on. It's not an accident. It shows that you're stronger than you thought. Adversity becomes a stepping stone to a more adaptable version of yourself when you adopt this mindset, rather than an insurmountable obstacle. And each day that you get through a struggle, the power that you've always had becomes clearer, stronger, and harder to beat. 9. Why being thankful is important. The world we live in always makes us want more money, more fame, more things, and more attention. However, the Stoics taught us an important lesson. Happiness and peace don't come from what we don't have, but from what we do have. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, think of the precious privilege of being alive, of breathing, of thinking, of enjoying, of loving," he captured this perfectly. There is an act of revaluation when you tell yourself, "Gratitude is my focus." This daily prompt will help you concentrate on the good things in your life instead of the bad things that are missing. Being thankful changes the way you see things. Things you might have thought were unimportant become sources of plenty. Life is a gift in its purest form. When we enjoy the little things in life, like the feel of the sun on our skin, the taste of a meal, or a sincere talk, we understand that we are already wealthy, though not always in a material sense. Seneca said, "Life is like a play. It's not the length that matters, but the quality of the performance." By practicing gratitude, you learn to find quality in everyday moments, to appreciate the beauty of things that don't last, and to accept that everything changes. Expressing this kind of thanks isn't just something you do when things are going well. It becomes a way of life that helps you find the good, even in bad times. "It is not things that bother us, but our thoughts about them," said Epictetus. You can change your thoughts about problems by practicing thanks. What might seem like an overwhelming problem at first turns out to be a chance to learn and grow over time. Be thankful for every test and lesson that has brought you to this point. By telling yourself every day to be grateful, you start to understand that life is not a race to get more things or accomplishments, but a way to experience and appreciate what you already have. Being thankful lets you enjoy the trip, so you don't have to wait until you reach the end to be happy. And when you think of things to be thankful for, life is full of light, peace, and meaning. Being grateful brings you into the present, lets you be happy with what is, and teaches you that you don't need anything else to be happy. You will learn that real wealth is learning to see the value in what you already have as you walk this path of thanks. Being able to change, learn from each event, let go of the things we can't change, and most of all, being thankful for just being alive gives us real power. Every day telling ourselves these facts helps us remember that we are not subjects of our situations, but creators of our lives. To be happy and at peace, we must first see our own power, know that we can change, and be open to what the present moment has to offer. Let's go deeper. Imagine being in the middle of a mess where problems keep piling up and stress levels rise. You stay strong, calm, and focused while others lose it. It's not that you don't feel stressed, but that you know how to handle it. That's the difference between people who give up when things get tough and people who use it as a stepping stone to success. Many of the most important leaders, business people, and thinkers in history were most powerful when they were calm. Stoicism has been a way of life that changes how we deal with problems and turns them into chances, from Marcus Aurelius to current business people. Is it possible for you to develop the same mindset? You will learn here that staying calm is not just a passive response, but a strong strategy that can help you reach your goals with focus and drive. I want to ask you to take the first step toward your change before I go on. Today, I start my new version, calm, strong, and stoic. Write in the comments. This simple action will show that you're ready for change, a stronger mindset, and the way of thinking that has helped great leaders achieve success. Don't forget how powerful a choice can be. Number 1, you have to work at being calm. It's like a bunch of horses that got away. If you let it, it will bring you down into fear, worry, and anger. But you can train your mind to be in check, just like a rider trains his horses. It's not like you just feel calm when things are going well. You have to work at it. You have to train yourself to turn your mind toward peace instead of chaos. It means choosing in every moment that you will not be a slave to your feelings or the way things are going. Being calm is a sign of strength, not weakness. It means being able to look at the world without being affected by it. When fear, worry, or anger take over the thought, it means the person has lost control. Not because things are too hard, but because we haven't been taught how to handle them rationally. Most people just go with the flow of life. When things go wrong, they worry. When people treat them badly, they get angry. When they run into a problem, they give up. But all of these responses come from a mind that is out of control. The Stoics knew that the best way to find peace is not to change the world, but to train your mind not to let it bother you. When your mind moves between the past and the future, stuck in thoughts that don't help you, you feel fear and worry. But there is only calm in the present. Epictetus told us that most of our pain is made in our minds, not in the real world. We think about what might go wrong, what someone said, and things we can't change. When we do this, we leave the present moment, which is the only place where we can be calm. If you only think about the next step, you can't be worried or stressed. You can become calm by bringing your mind back to the present moment over and over again until it becomes second nature. Something happens inside us when we put in this effort. We learn to pause before responding and to watch before moving. This way, we are no longer controlled by our emotions, and we don't react to every little thing. It gets easier to deal with worry, and anger stops being so strong. It's not that life is easy now, it's that we know how to stand strong when things go wrong. Epictetus said that what affects us is not what things are, but how we think about them. Our reaction is controlled by how we understand things. If we are in charge of our response, we are in charge of our life. But being calm isn't something you can get once and keep forever. It takes self-discipline, awareness, and the will to choose logic over feeling and the moment over everything else. Pause every time you feel worry, anger, or fear trying to take over. Ask yourself, does this thought help me or take me away from peace? Is my reaction based on habit or on what I know? When you choose to be calm, your mind gets stronger. You get stronger every time you control your thoughts. Being calm doesn't mean being indifferent or passive. It means acting with awareness, answering with intelligence, and making decisions with peace instead of rashness. Anyone can learn how to do it with practice, and once you get good at it, you realize that life isn't about controlling the outside world, but about controlling your own mind, because the person who has control over their mind has power over their life. Second, breathing consciously can help you stay calm. Breathing consciously is one of the best ways to stay calm when things are going crazy. It's easy to use, always available, and doesn't need anything else. But we breathe so often that we don't even think about how it affects our bodies and minds. When we're under a lot of worry and anxiety, our breathing gets short and fast, which makes our mental state even worse. Putting our attention on breathing, taking deep, conscious breaths, changes something. We become more in touch with our bodies and the current moment, which is the only reality that really counts. Stoic philosophy says that controlling your body is the first step to controlling your mind, and breathing is the link between the two. The first thing that comes to mind when we're feeling stressed, unsure, or emotionally upset is to breathe faster. Instead, we can take a moment to inhale deeply, slowly, and under control. This sends a message to the nervous system that says, "Everything is fine, there is no real danger, we can respond instead of reacting." Conscious breathing helps us remember that we have the power to choose how we react to every situation. One of the most important parts of Stoic practice is the control of observation. What bothers us is not the outside world, but how we see it. As we breathe slowly and deliberately, we take a break from our worries, both physically and metaphorically. We make sure our attention stays on the rhythm of our own life, instead of letting bad thoughts or the speed of modern life take over. Every breath in is a sign that we are in the present moment, and every breath out is a chance to let go of things we can't change. The mind often jumps between the past and the future when we're having a hard time. We're worried about what might happen or what someone said, but breathing consciously brings us back to the present, which is the only thing we know for sure. When we take a big breath, our minds stop talking and we can think clearly again. A Stoic knows that the only place to find calm is inside oneself, and deep breathing is the key to getting there. It's not hard to practice conscious breathing, but you have to set out to do it. Stop, take a big breath in, hold it for a few seconds, and then slowly let it out. Doing this a few times can totally change our state of mind. We become more aware, present, and in charge of ourselves. We don't have to wait for a break in life. We can have one with every breath. Right away, this exercise helps. When we breathe deeply and deliberately, we lower the production of stress hormones, ease muscle tightness, and increase the flow of oxygen to the brain. We can think more clearly and act wisely instead of rashly because of this. No matter how crazy things are outside, if we calm our breath, our minds will be calm too. Use this in your everyday life at any time, like before answering a message that makes us mad, before making a big decision, or before having a tough talk. It only takes one deep breath to go from reacting with out-of-control passion to responding with the calm and self-control of a Stoic. Being aware of our breathing is what grounds us and reminds us that our choices give us real power. Third, getting regular exercise is important for brain health. Moving your body is important for keeping your mind in good shape. It's not just good for your body, it's also a basic rule for anyone who wants to be clear, focused, and mentally strong. The Stoics knew that training your body is the same as training your mind. If you don't move your body and take care of it, you can't expect your mind to be sharp. We get better at dealing with everyday life with firmness, kindness, and self-control when we work out. For the brain to work well, it needs oxygen and good blood flow. The brain is the most important organ for making decisions. When we walk, run, or train, we feed this organ. A brain that gets enough oxygen is more flexible, stronger, and less likely to get anxious or confused. When we don't move around much, on the other hand, our minds get slow, heavy, and easy to stress. It's easier for worries to take over, and mental tiredness sets in quickly. Being active can often make the difference between having a confused mind and a focused mind. Regular exercises have a big mental edge. Not only are their bodies stronger, but their brains are also better able to handle stress. There will always be stress in our lives, but how we handle it depends on how ready we are. The body releases endorphins when we work out, chemicals that naturally relieve stress and worry. Because of nature, things are going our way. Just by working out, we can feel lighter, happier, and more focused afterward. The part of the brain that controls memory and focus, the hippocampus, gets direct benefits from exercise. Researchers have found that doing something as easy as walking quickly 3 times a week can make it bigger. This helps us remember things, learn new things, and focus on what's important. When we train regularly, we shape our brains, making them smarter and less likely to lose their shape over time. Huge in a world full of distractions. Getting regular exercise isn't just about how we look or how well our bodies work. It's also a way to help us think more clearly, move with more control, and make better choices when we're under a lot of stress. Working out not only helps us get rid of stress, but it also teaches us how to be patient when we're in pain. Pushing our bodies past tiredness teaches us how to push our minds past anger. The self-discipline we use in training helps us be self-disciplined in everyday life. There's a reason why so many of history's great thinkers made exercise a part of their lives. They stayed in shape, walking, running, and working out, because they knew it helped them think more clearly. The goal is not to become an athlete or follow a strict schedule. Instead, it's to realize that the mind and body are connected. A weak body makes it hard to have a strong thought. A calm mind works best with an active body. We have to work out if we want to be able to think clearly, act with control, and live with more awareness. You need to be mentally and physically strong to face life's challenges. Getting stronger in the body also helps the mind, and when the mind is strong, life is easier to handle. Fourth, getting enough sleep is very important for the intellect. Not only is getting enough sleep a nice to have, it's also essential for brain health. A tired body can keep going with some effort, but a mind that doesn't get any rest is shaky, insecure, and likely to make mistakes. You can be very responsible, but if you don't get enough sleep, it will be hard for you to focus, remember things, and make choices. Deep sleep is the only way for the mind to get the rest it needs because its capacity is limited. The brain starts to break down after just one night of not getting enough sleep. Not getting enough rest hurts our memories, shortens our attention span, and makes us more sensitive. When we haven't slept enough, we get more irritable, impatient, and anxious. The difference is clear. After a good sleep, the world seems easier to handle, issues are easier to solve, and the mind is clearer. Not getting enough sleep, on the other hand, makes any problem seem bigger than it really is. Everything feels heavy, confusing, and more annoying. There is more to sleep than just a break. During sleep, the brain fixes and reorganizes itself. While you sleep, your brain's links get stronger, and you remember important things better. It is during deep sleep that feelings from the day are processed, worry is let go of, and the mind becomes clear. People who get enough sleep wake up feeling refreshed and ready to face the day with calm and drive. A Stoic knows that he can't depend on a mind that is tired. To be disciplined, logical, and emotionally stable, you need a strong base, and that base is getting enough rest. You should also give your body and mind the time they need to heal. If we don't give our brains a chance to reset every night, we can't expect to think clearly. Getting enough good sleep can often make the difference between a busy day and a stressful day. Not getting enough sleep changes more than just our memories and ability to focus. It also affects how we handle our emotions. When we don't get enough rest, we get more angry over things we usually could handle quietly. A small problem seems like a crisis, and a simple task seems impossible. Less patience, less self-control, and a skewed view of things. This happens because a tired brain is less logical and more likely to act without thinking. Getting enough sleep is like working out your mind. It allows you to act more clearly, precisely, and with more control. You see things as they really are instead of how you think they are when you're tired. Getting enough rest is like polishing a sword. A well-rested mind can easily cut through confusion, while a tired mind becomes clumsy and confused. Great leaders, thinkers, and planners have often put sleep first because they knew the mind's power depends on its ability to recover. Good sleep is also important for dealing with stress. We can't control the things that happen, but we can choose how to deal with them. A brain that has had enough rest is better able to adapt, find answers, and handle stress without giving up. Not how many hours of sleep we get, but how well we rest our bodies is what makes us calm. Getting enough sleep is not a waste of time. It builds mental power, clarity, and focus. It's not about sleeping more, it's about sleeping better. It's important to have a routine, be disciplined, and cut down on distractions before bed. A Stoic knows that every day starts the night before, and that sleep is the key to facing life with knowledge and calm. You should respect yourself, your mind, and the life you want to build by getting enough rest. A strong mind needs a lot of rest. When we get enough sleep, we're ready to face any problem and act gently and clearly when we wake up. Fifth, how the surroundings affect calm. The place where you live has a bigger effect on your overall mood than you think. Epictetus said, "Don't try to make things happen the way you want them to. Instead, wish for them to happen as they will, and your life will be calm." But it's hard to stay calm when your surroundings are busy, confusing, or full of distractions. To find peace, it's not just a matter of willpower. It's also about how you set up your physical and mental space. Making a space that encourages calm is not just an option, it's a must. What's going on around the mind affects how it works. If your home is a mess and full of noise, your mind will be the same way. But if you organize your space on purpose, making sure it has enough light, soft colors, and fewer things that might confuse you, you will be giving your brain a clear message. This is where you can rest and think clearly. Marcus Aurelius knew that calm is not something that can be found, but something that can be created. That's why he wrote in his notebook every morning, "When the setting is calm, it has an instant effect on how people feel." You don't have to go on a vacation to find peace. You can create your own haven in everyday life, a place where you can slow down and be with yourself without being constantly interrupted. A feeling of security is created by things like warm lighting, order, not having too much noise, and using natural elements like plants or wood. And when things are calm around you, your mind tends to follow. To lower stress, you need to do more than just avoid problems. You also need to prepare to face them with understanding. Having a calm setting doesn't make problems go away, but it does make it easier to deal with them calmly. The Stoics practiced taking time to think and avoiding distractions. They didn't let the noise of the world control them. Instead, they looked for places where they could reconnect with their reason and purpose. A calm setting not only lowers stress, it helps with concentration. Having a place where you can be present is very important in a world where messages, social media, and excessive information bombard you all the time. Even though Marcus Aurelius was an emperor with many duties, he found time to think, even with chaos all around. Not because his life was simple, but because he knew that being calm is important for keeping his mind clear. It's vital to remember that your surroundings can affect how you feel. Take a look at where you spend most of your time if you feel like anger and worry are always around. Is it supposed to make you feel calm, or does it cause stress and distraction? Cutting down on clutter and removing things that don't add value can make a big difference. Set aside an area for reading or meditating. It's important not to make big changes all at once, but to slowly create a setting that matches the calmness you want to grow within yourself. Being calm is not something you search for outside. It's something you grow inside. But for the mind to find it, it needs a place that supports it. Plan the layout of your area carefully and surround yourself with things that help you feel calm. If you can create an inner sanctuary that breathes calm, your mind will learn to do the same. Don't let the chaos outside get in. Sixth, the effect of eating and using drugs. What you eat and drink changes both your body and your mind. The Stoics knew that self-control and moderation were important for living a healthy life. Epictetus said, "It's not life itself that bothers us, but our thoughts about it." But if what you eat changes your body's makeup, it becomes harder for you to stay calm and clear. If you feed your body drugs, processed foods, and other things that throw off its balance all the time, you can't expect to have a calm mind. A man once drank several cups of coffee in the morning because he thought it kept him awake and helped him get things done. He had no idea that drinking too much coffee was actually making him feel bad mentally. By mid-morning, he was anxious for no obvious reason. His mind kept jumping from one thought to the next, and he found it harder to focus. By afternoon, when the caffeine wore off, he felt tired and needed more stimulants to keep going. One day, he chose to pay attention to his body and think about how what he ate affected his mood. He cut down on coffee and switched to green tea, which gave him energy without spikes and crashes. Over time, his mind became more steady and his anxiety lessened. You can only make better choices if you know what you eat and how it makes you feel. It's not about giving up everything you like, but about noticing whether the things you eat and drink bring you closer to or farther away from peace. Processed foods, high in sugar and chemicals, can make your body inflamed and throw off your mental balance. Stimulant drinks can make you feel better for a short time, but if you don't limit them, they can lead to dependence and emotional instability. Marcus Aurelius lived a moderate life because he understood that too much can make you unstable. You lose control of yourself when you eat or drink too much, or when you rely on external substances to control your mood. The Stoics also knew that real strength doesn't come from what you eat, but from being able to make choices without giving in. When you start to control what you eat, you'll notice your mood changes right away. Anxiety goes down, the mind feels better, and energy stays steady all day. You don't have to get rid of everything at once, but you should reflect on each choice. Does this food nourish me or wear me out? Does this drink make me antsy or help me concentrate? Does this make me feel good, or can I get by without it? It's clear that food can influence calm. Mind and body are connected. What you do to one affects the other. If your nervous system is overloaded with stimulants, it will be harder to stay calm and patient. Healthy food gives your body tools to handle stress. Seneca noted that the body needs to be trained so that it doesn't stop listening to the soul. It's impossible to be in charge of your mind if you have no say over what you eat. Reduce coffee, skip artificial foods in favor of more natural ones, and eat slowly and mindfully. Don't eat when you're not hungry. Eat when you are. Notice how each choice affects your energy and mood, not out of obligation, but because you'll see that true peace comes from a mind and body that work together, and that balance starts with your daily diet. 7th, the power of laughter to make you feel calm. Laughter isn't just an emotional response. It's a tool for change and a natural way for the body to relieve stress and bring the mind back into balance. The Stoics knew that pain doesn't come from things that happen, but from how we think about them. Epictetus said, "What happens to us doesn't affect us. How we see it does." If you can find humor in a bad situation, it takes away some of your mental burden and loosens your emotional grip. Laughter is not an escape. It's a way to bring your mind back to a balanced state. When you are tense or nervous, your body goes into fight or flight mode. Your breathing speeds up, your muscles tense, and your mind is on high alert. If you don't let go of that stress, it will build up, harming your ability to concentrate and make good decisions. The mind can transform any problem to its advantage. One way is through laughter, reminding you that things aren't always as bad as they seem, that life goes on, and that humor can lighten the load. Humor pushes you to think differently. When bad things happen, being rigid makes you weak, but being able to laugh at them gives you power over them. Problems shouldn't be ignored, but you can deal with them with less stress. You won't feel as beaten down if you can laugh at your own mistakes, and your anxiety will be less if you find humor in a difficult day. Stoics practiced emotional detachment, not to become cold, but to prevent emotions from taking over. Laughter is a way to detach, letting you see things more clearly and without letting the weight of stress pile up. Science backs the benefits of laughter, showing that it activates the parasympathetic system, which helps you relax and recover. Laughing reduces cortisol, releases serotonin, and boosts circulation, giving you an immediate mental lift and a break from worry. Seneca said that life is like a play. What matters is how well it's performed, not how long it is. You also have to learn not to take things too seriously. Someone who is always worried lets stress build in their mind and body, damaging their health and well-being. Incorporating moments of laughter helps you find balance. It breaks the cycle of worry, gives the mind and body a rest, and can shift your whole day's outlook. Laughter also strengthens relationships. Sharing a funny moment builds instant closeness, eases tension, and deepens bonds. A simple smile or light-hearted joke can smooth out a tough situation. The Stoics knew that the best way to find peace isn't avoiding problems, but learning to navigate them calmly. Laughter is one of the best ways to reset. Instead of running away, it's a reminder that you can always choose how to respond. If fear or stress is overwhelming you, try to find ways to laugh daily. Watch something funny, recall a humorous memory, or just smile at how minor some troubles are in the bigger picture. Often, things that kept you up at night turn out to be small bumps when you see them later. Remember how powerful laughter can be in maintaining balance. Chaos doesn't control you if you can laugh within it. That alone is enormous strength. Laughing is not weakness, it's power. It shows that you choose to enjoy life no matter what. Number 8. Find your triggers and deal with them. Emotional triggers are mental traps that cause us to react unconsciously. The real issue isn't the outside event, but how we interpret it. Epictetus said, "People are not upset by events, but by how they think about them." Anything can be a trigger if it's tied to a painful memory or association. If we're unaware of this, we react automatically, letting emotions control us. Imagine someone speaks to you in a tone that reminds you of a past hurt. You tense up, get angry or anxious for no clear reason. Your mind is reacting not to the present reality, but to a memory, re-triggering an emotional pattern. This happens all the time. A comment that recalls childhood scolding, a place that brings back a sad memory, or a situation that stirs an old fear. Marcus Aurelius showed that the mind can reshape how we think about anything. Nothing can disturb your peace if you don't let it. If you don't identify your triggers, you'll be controlled by your own reactions. Your emotions shift based on external events. If you observe carefully, you may spot patterns. Why do some things bother me more than others? Why does criticism hurt me so deeply when it doesn't affect others? Why do I feel anxious at certain times of the day for no reason? Reality itself doesn't hold power over you. Your interpretation does, and that interpretation can be changed. When you know your triggers, you can interrupt the automatic process. Next time you feel that strong emotional surge, pause and breathe. Ask yourself, am I reacting to this event or to some past wound? Often you'll see the present pain is really from an old hurt you hadn't fully acknowledged, and that awareness alone can reduce its intensity. The Stoics disciplined their minds to avoid acting on impulse. They felt pain and emotion like anyone else, but they didn't let it run their lives. Once you identify your triggers, you can plan a different response. If certain words consistently upset you, learn to reframe them. If certain environments make you anxious, instead of avoiding them, gradually expose yourself and practice new reactions. The trigger itself isn't the enemy. How you deal with it is key. Being calm doesn't mean never feeling emotion. It means learning not to lose control. A trigger can still flare up, but you don't have to act on it right away. You can observe it, reflect, and then decide. Epictetus taught that real freedom lies in controlling your own mind, not external events. Triggers won't vanish, but they don't have to rule you. Once you know how to disarm them, you're no longer at the mercy of random circumstances. Minor comments won't rattle you, pointless provocations won't spark your anger, and a small hurt won't ruin your entire day. You're in charge. Then you see that true inner peace depends not on outside events, but on how you decide to view them. True power is in that space between a trigger and your response. In that pause, you can step forward wisely or just react. When you choose wisdom, life stops feeling like a battlefield and becomes an opportunity to practice mental discipline and clarity. What once seemed terrifying is now just another chance to grow your resilience, and that is real freedom. 9. Think positively about what is, not what was. The past can lock you in place if you hold on to it too tightly. There is nothing left of what was, but you bring it into the present and thus keep it alive when you constantly replay it. Epictetus said, "There's only one way to be happy, to stop worrying about things we can't change." The past is the ultimate unchangeable. If you keep dwelling on things that didn't go right, mistakes and failures, you give life to what's already gone. Holding on to the past makes you repeat the same patterns, not because fate forces you to, but because your mind is stuck on the same loop. If you want different results, you must change your perspective. Aristotle said, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. If your thoughts are trapped in the past, your actions will reflect that. If someone failed before and keeps reliving it, they'll move through life as if they're doomed. If someone was rejected before and can't let that go, they'll approach every new opportunity expecting rejection. They're limited, not by past facts, but by their current thinking about them. If you stop thinking about what was and refocus on what you want to build, your mind will take on a new direction, and when the mind shifts, everything else shifts." Positive thinking isn't about ignoring reality. It's about refusing to feed what weakens you. Acknowledge what happened, but stop letting it define you. Don't add future suffering by reliving old pain. Focus on what you can do now to improve things. Dwelling on what's always been will guarantee more of the same. Life mirrors your intentions and beliefs. If you constantly remind yourself you've never achieved anything, you confirm that story to your mind, and it becomes self-fulfilling. If, however, you imagine yourself in a better situation with new attitudes and opportunities, your mind starts looking for solutions instead of excuses. Marcus Aurelius recognized this when he wrote, "Our life is what our thoughts make it." Letting go of the past doesn't mean forgetting it. It means cutting emotional ties to what no longer serves you. Learn from it, then use it to move forward. If guilt or regret comes up, ask yourself, how can I turn this into an advantage? What lesson is here? You are no longer who you were back then. Every day you have a chance to choose differently. Directing your attention to the present and future instills a sense of calm. You're no longer fighting the past or wasting energy on something that doesn't exist. You're clear about what you want now and where you're going. You flow with life instead of staying in regret. It's pointless to keep replaying old scenarios because it changes nothing. Only your present thoughts and actions can shift your life. Moment by moment, that choice changes everything. 10th, letting go of control makes you calm. A big source of anxiety is wanting to control everything around us. Epictetus said, "Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are under our control and others are not. But most people waste time trying to control what they cannot. Other people's opinions, outcomes, reactions, and unpredictable events, and exhaust themselves in the process. Being in charge of everything doesn't bring calm. Letting go of the need for things to go your way does. We try to control our relationships because we want people to treat us a certain way. We want to control our careers so we never feel unsafe. We want to control the future so there's no uncertainty. But life doesn't work that way. Uncertainty is guaranteed, and resisting it only magnifies our stress. Marcus Aurelius said, "If something outside of you bothers you, it's not that thing itself, but how you think about it. The problem isn't uncertainty, but your insistence that it be certain. You're permanently tense when you try to control everything. Every surprise is a threat, every slip-up a crisis, and everyone's opinion weighs heavily on you. Worst of all, no matter how hard you try, full control is impossible. People will keep thinking what they want. The future will remain uncertain, and events will still take unexpected turns." The Stoic approach: don't fight reality. Accept it, not because you're giving up, but because you're wise enough to invest your energy only where it can make a difference. You can influence your thoughts, choices, and responses. You can't force someone to treat you kindly, but you can decide how to react if they don't. You can't change the past if things go wrong, but you can choose how to move forward. You can't instantly escape a tough situation, but you can choose how to handle it. Worrying less about what you can't control is transformative. The moment you let go, you feel a wave of relief. You no longer carry the responsibility for making everything perfect. You see uncertainty not as an enemy, but as a constant part of life. Seneca said, "Nature has not given us a lasting body or an immortal spirit, but the ability to endure." Part of endurance is embracing what you can't change, instead of wasting all your energy fighting it. Being calm means realizing you are not in control of everything. It's laying down your arms and embracing reality. Instead of obsessing over the future, you prepare for it. You work on improving yourself rather than clinging to people or outcomes you can't dictate. Surprises don't anger you, but prompt you to ask, what can I do with this? When you stop viewing uncertainty as a problem and start seeing it as a chance to practice mental agility, your mindset changes completely. You learn that real strength isn't found in controlling external events. It's in controlling your response to them. Once you grasp this, you stop being thrown off by what you can't dictate. You become lighter, more adaptable, and more focused on what truly matters. Calm isn't achieved when everything is under control, but when you let go of what was never yours to control in the first place. Number 11. Use negative energy for positive action. You will always have negative emotions like anger, frustration, and sadness. The question is what you do with them. Epictetus said, "We can't change the events that happen to us, but we can change how we respond to them." People often respond to anger or frustration impulsively by lashing out or bottling it up, leading to destruction or internal turmoil. The Stoics, though, recognize that the emotions themselves aren't the issue. It's how we channel them. Imagine you have a bad day at work. Your boss yells at you, a project fails, and you feel powerless. You might want to slam your desk, complain, or snap at someone else. But you can choose to channel that energy in a constructive way. Maybe go for a run to clear your head, jot down improvements for the project, or dedicate your time to something that strengthens rather than harms you. The anger doesn't vanish instantly, but instead of destroying, you build. Anger and frustration are powerful energies. Left unchecked, they lead to rash decisions and pointless conflicts. But harness them well, and they fuel innovation, concentration, and drive. Marcus Aurelius journaled to process his thoughts instead of letting them control him. Similarly, finding a positive outlet for negative emotions trains your mind to resist unhealthy impulses. If frustration hits, pour that energy into physical exercise. If anger strikes, let it motivate you to refine your skills or solve an issue. If disappointment weighs on you, transform that sadness into determination to learn or try something new. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." The key isn't avoiding emotions, but leveraging them for growth. Channeling negative energy into something productive stops us from acting on destructive impulses we often regret. How many times have we regretted words or actions spoken in anger? Calm doesn't mean burying emotions. It means using them wisely. Don't see anger as an intruder, but as fuel. Negative feelings aren't evil, they're signals. Frustration might show you something in your life needs fixing. Anger might highlight a boundary you must protect. Sadness might invite deeper reflection. Still, if you let them dominate unchecked, they become a menace. Self-control is vital for peace and well-being. You don't need to feel serene every second. Just be mindful of how you use your emotional energy. Don't let anger or frustration make you act out. Avoid sinking into grumbling or petty fights. Instead, focus on what matters and let negative energy spur you to do better. When you master your emotions rather than letting them master you, calm naturally follows. It's not about never feeling anything, but about turning every emotion, good or bad, into your strength rather than your weakness. 12. Shift your attention and slow your thinking. A racing mind is an ungoverned mind. When your thoughts constantly run at high speed, you become anxious, your emotions flare up, and you make hasty decisions. Stress arises from how fast we interpret events, not the events themselves. What happens to us doesn't affect us. How we interpret it does. If your mind doesn't slow down, you can't see clearly. You simply react instead of responding, and rash actions create more trouble. When thoughts whirl around, you go into reactive mode. Every small problem seems huge. Every delay feels like a crisis. Any ambiguity turns into an urgent worry. Speed fuels anxiety, which then feeds more speed. Marcus Aurelius practiced reflection to avoid this trap, writing each morning and night to train his mind away from emotional frenzy. Slowing your thinking doesn't mean thinking less. It means thinking better. It's about pausing to see what's really happening before taking action. Not everything demands an immediate response, nor is everything urgent. Seneca warned, "Haste is the enemy of good judgment." If you pause to calmly assess a problem before responding, you'll often find the solution simpler than you first feared. But if your mind is racing, the problem feels unsolvable and larger than it truly is. As you practice slowing down, you start noticing patterns you never saw before. You detect worry-based mental loops early and can intervene. This doesn't mean ignoring your emotions, but giving yourself time to see what they're telling you without blindly obeying them. In a society that praises speed, social media, non-stop news, constant notifications, Socrates recognized that true strength is found in patience and not succumbing to the flurry of the moment. You don't have to reply immediately to every message or form an opinion instantly. You can breathe, reflect, then choose. Slowing your mind frees it from needless clutter. You no longer get bogged down by trivialities or the pressure to do everything at once. Instead, you handle one thing at a time, knowing calm reasoning is superior to frantic reaction. When a genuine priority arises, you address it fully. When an emotion flares up, you allow space to process it without being consumed. Slower thinking can actually boost productivity. A short pause before speaking can prevent a pointless argument. 1 minute of reflection before an action can avert months of regret. Patience is not laziness, it's wisdom. Training yourself to slow your thoughts has immediate benefits. Anxiety drops when you don't treat every impulse as an alarm. You gain clarity by seeing reality for what it is. You're no longer weighed down by random mental chatter. Calm isn't a goal you achieve once, but a skill you hone daily. Don't let the frantic pace of the world dictate your mind's speed. Choose measured thought, because that's where you hold true power over your life. Once you do that, peace shifts from concept to your natural state. 13. Work on having a detached mindset. Detachment does not mean apathy. It doesn't mean you stop caring or feeling. It means learning to be aware of emotions without letting them rule you. Epictetus said, "What troubles us is not what happens to us, but our opinion of what happens." When you're overly attached to a specific emotion or outcome, you lose perspective. You get frustrated if things don't go your way, angry if people don't behave as you hoped, and paralyzed by worry about the uncertain future. Detachment lets you observe events with clarity, leading to better decisions. Imagine a challenging conversation or a high-stakes interview. Your heart races, your mind overthinks, and anxiety spikes because you need everything to go perfectly. If you remember that the result isn't entirely in your hands, only your preparation and composure are, you can ease up. You stop depending on external approval and trust your own efforts. When you're emotionally entangled, a slight provocation triggers immediate anger, or a small problem feels like a personal attack. Detachment helps you pause before reacting. Instead of lashing out, you assess whether it's worth your energy. Instead of feeling insulted, you realize you can choose not to be hurt. Without clinging to every negative feeling, you're less swayed by life's highs and lows. Detachment isn't ignoring emotions, it's seeing that they aren't you. Fear can cause anxiety, anger can spark aggression, sadness can pull you down. But if you hold them lightly, they pass like clouds in the sky rather than forming storms within you. Detachment clarifies your vision. Fear or wishful thinking no longer warps your perception of reality. You see things as they are. Letting go of what you can't control also reduces worry. Your relationships improve because you're less reactive. Decision-making becomes sounder because you're not driven by ego or fear. It's not about shutting off emotions, but preventing them from taking command. A Stoic isn't cold or uninterested. They feel deeply, but aren't consumed. A wise person doesn't let pain dominate. They use it. Emotions have their place, if you manage them well. Detachment unlocks freedom. No longer are you enslaved by your fears, desires, or the need for others' approval. You remain at peace, even if events unfold unexpectedly. You learn not to fight life, but flow with it. You let go and move on when something doesn't work out, knowing you own only your mind and your response. That acceptance brings calm. When you quit fighting what you can't change, you can pour effort into what you can improve. Many things don't deserve your distress when viewed this way. Finding real peace means seeing emotions as temporary visitors, not as rulers of your life. You navigate this world with clarity, not because it's perfect, but because you've detached from demands that it be so. Number 14. Being thankful changes how you see things. Gratitude can profoundly shift your experience of life, not just for blessings, but for challenges, surprises, and even what looks like misfortune. Someone wise once said, "Don't wish for things to happen as you want them to. Wish for them to happen as they do happen, and your life will flow peacefully." Gratitude doesn't mean denying difficulties, but finding lessons hidden within them. When rejection, failure, or loss strikes, the immediate reaction might be anger or despair. You might feel life is against you, but if you pause and ask what it's teaching you, you can start to see these events differently. What once looked like a setback might become a path forward, and what felt like a loss might be a chance to rebuild something stronger. Marcus Aurelius wrote about accepting each moment for what it is, because that is where true freedom resides. Gratitude doesn't imply you must like or endorse everything that happens, only that you can learn from it. You rarely get exactly what you want in life, but you often get precisely what you need to grow stronger. Rejection sharpens you, failure points out where you need to improve, and loss reminds you to value what you have. If you can be thankful even in hard times, nothing breaks you. When you train your mind to search for good in every situation, negativity loses its grip. Fate's blows don't shatter you, they shape you. A good character is formed with a few strokes of fate, but a great character with many. Every difficulty you face builds mental and spiritual muscle. But if you focus only on negatives, you miss the chance to evolve. Gratitude is a powerful tool to see beyond the immediate problem. Adopting a grateful mindset daily changes how you approach life. Even on the worst days, you can think of something, however small, to appreciate. It isn't about forced cheer, but about choosing a beneficial perspective. When you stop resisting reality and start valuing it, calm sets in. You don't give up striving to improve. You just accept this moment as a necessary part of the process. By focusing on what you can change and finding every teachable moment, you grow more peaceful. Gratitude is a practice, not a passive feeling. You learn to spot the silver lining in any situation. Ask yourself, what am I learning from this? How can this help me grow? You discover there's always something to be thankful for. Then anxiety and fear lose their hold. You don't need perfection to feel at peace. You need a fresh perspective on what happens to you. Gratitude unlocks that perspective. It's the secret to turning every challenge into an opportunity. It's the difference between living with a constant sense of burden and living with constant growth. And once you adopt this view, you see that real contentment doesn't stem from possessions or achievements. It comes from how you choose to see each day. Number 15. The power of social connections to improve brain health. Connecting with others is among the most crucial factors for mental stability. No matter how mentally strong you are, prolonged isolation can wear you down. Epictetus noted, "Man is not so much worried by real problems as by his imagined anxieties about them." When you're isolated, your mind can magnify worries, creating a cycle of stress that could be interrupted by a simple conversation or a moment with someone you trust. When stress weighs heavily, people often withdraw, thinking they must solve everything alone. But humans aren't built to function in loneliness. Neuroscientists have found that social bonds activate the parasympathetic response, the system that calms and restores the body. A hug, a heartfelt talk, or just companionship can reduce stress and quiet your mind. Marcus Aurelius recognized this, saying, "If you wake up thinking you're meant to help others, everything makes sense." Isolation aggravates stress. Alone, your mind can blow problems out of proportion. Without anyone to share worries with, negative thoughts become bigger than they really are. Strong social ties bring not just relief, but perspective. Talking to a trusted friend reveals fresh angles on the issue, easing your mind and guiding you to solutions. The Stoics understood community's importance. They didn't seek to be hermits. They balanced solitude and social interaction. Sharing experiences and supporting each other strengthen well-being and mental health. Seneca said, "There is no delight in owning anything unshared." Building meaningful bonds is what really impacts mental stability. Small daily acts, coffee with a friend, a short chat with family, or even a shared laugh can greatly shift your mindset, ease stress, and foster calm. If you feel fear or worry creeping in, consider your social connections. Are you too isolated? Have you neglected certain relationships? Sometimes the solution is to reach out rather than overthink. Quality matters more than quantity. You don't have to fill your calendar with trivial meetups, but rather cultivate relationships that truly contribute to calm and balance. Staying connected, letting yourself be heard and supported, lowers stress. Problems may not vanish, but you tackle them more calmly when you don't feel alone. Having a support system regulates emotions. This doesn't mean depending on others to fix everything for you, but recognizing that happiness isn't achieved in total isolation. Your ability to form and maintain healthy social bonds affects both personal and professional success. Mental stability doesn't equal isolating yourself 24/7. It's knowing when to seek help or connection and when to offer it. Real strength isn't doing everything alone. It's grasping that sharing the weight makes it lighter. Marcus Aurelius saw every interaction as a chance to grow in virtue. Building robust connections is among the surest ways to handle stress, strengthen resilience, and remain collected under pressure. Engaging with others reminds you that you're not alone, that someone will listen, and that life is simpler when shared. A calm mind doesn't shut the door on the world. It seeks balance between solitude and solidarity. Imagine being in the middle of chaos, problems everywhere, stress climbing. You stand firm, calm, focused, while others unravel. It's not that you don't feel stress, but that you've learned to manage it. That is what distinguishes people who crumble under pressure from those who harness it to reach new heights. Many of the world's greatest leaders, entrepreneurs, and thinkers discovered true power in calm. From Marcus Aurelius to modern business magnates, Stoicism has turned trials into opportunities. Can you cultivate the same mindset? Yes. As you've seen, remaining calm isn't a passive stance, but a dynamic tactic for achieving goals with clarity and drive. Remember, the Stoics did not deny pain or advocate for blind optimism. They advocated for finding virtue and resilience in each scenario life presents. In your own life, this might mean that while you acknowledge sorrow or frustration, you also see them as catalysts for deeper understanding or purposeful action. Perhaps you volunteer or channel your energy into creating something that helps others. You transform your grief or disappointment into compassion and effort. By deciding to engage the world constructively, you elevate your experiences beyond mere suffering. You can look back and say, yes, this was hard, but it became a turning point for me to do something meaningful. That is deciding reality on a profound level, taking raw pain and forging it into a form of growth or service. There is a subtle beauty in this process, one that we often miss because our attention tends to fixate on what went wrong. It is easy to get caught in a loop of regret, wishing that life had served us gentler circumstances. But regret does not undo the past. It only chains us to a sense of powerlessness if we linger there too long. When we notice ourselves slipping into that mindset, we have the option to consciously step out of it. That step out might look like journaling about how we can use this experience, talking with someone who offers perspective, or simply taking a moment to acknowledge that we are here, in this moment, with choices before us. Each little action, however small, is a vote for personal agency over resignation. This does not imply that the heavy feelings vanish. Grief, anger, and sadness remain part of the tapestry of human life, but they no longer hold absolute dominion over the meaning we assign to events. That is the difference between being anchored by your emotions versus being carried away by them. An anchored person can experience the full intensity of an emotion while remembering, I still decide how I respond. A person adrift, however, feels at the mercy of every wave of feeling, never recognizing that they possess the power to shift their inner narrative. This sense of anchoring is a skill we develop by repeated practice, noticing when emotions arise, observing them with self-awareness, and consciously choosing our next move. The more we practice, the stronger that anchoring becomes. In deciding your reality, you also become more attuned to the variety of possibilities that exist in any given moment. Even in bleak situations, there might be a small window of opportunity, a conversation that could be had, a resource that could be utilized, a lesson that could be extracted. When we're stuck in negative thought loops, it's like wearing blinders. We only see the immediate frustration or pain. But when we consider that we have some say in how we frame our experiences, those blinders loosen. We might discover unexpected avenues for resolution or growth. This does not guarantee that every difficult scenario will end neatly, but it does increase the likelihood that we will notice potential solutions rather than dismissing them outright. Moreover, When you begin to see how significant your mental framing is, you may come to realize that no external condition can fully rob you of the ability to decide how you interpret it. Certain conditions may try. They may be so harsh that you are overwhelmed at first. But the moment you remind yourself of your own agency, you start carving out a sense of self that is not solely defined by external upheaval. This concept lies at the core of many philosophical teachings, that true power comes from within. While the external world can test us, it cannot invade the sanctity of our minds unless we leave the door wide open. When we speak of forging our own reality, we have to be careful not to conflate it with a stubborn refusal to see what is right in front of us. Some might assume that choosing a mindset that seeks opportunity or reframes negatives is the same as denying the difficulties themselves. It is not. If you are facing a health crisis, it is important to confront it head-on, seeking medical help, gathering information, and mobilizing your support network. Denial would be pretending everything is fine, ignoring symptoms, and avoiding checkups or medication. Deciding reality, on the other hand, means recognizing the gravity of the situation while maintaining the perspective that you still have choices regarding your outlook, your emotional investments, and your way of coping. You might choose to confront the condition with courage and a determination to make the most of your time. You might choose gratitude for the moments of relief or the lessons gleaned from the experience. These choices do not cure the illness, but they cure the notion that your life can only be defined by despair. In a world that often emphasizes external success, it can be tempting to measure our worth by what we accomplish or by how others perceive us. Yet, when we practice deciding our reality, we shift the locus of evaluation inward. We start asking, have I acted according to my values today? Have I chosen interpretations that foster growth, resilience, and empathy? The answers to these questions become more important than a superficial standard of success. You might find that you turn away from certain pursuits that once obsessed you because you realize they do not align with the inner reality you wish to cultivate. Conversely, you might embrace new pursuits that ignite a sense of meaning within you. This shift can be disconcerting at first, especially if your identity was heavily invested in chasing status or approval, but ultimately it brings a richer kind of fulfillment. Along this path, you will also likely encounter resistance from those around you. Some people may question your newfound optimism or accuse you of not being realistic. Others might find it threatening that you no longer engage in the same complaints or gossip that used to bond you together. It is important to remember that deciding your reality is not about judging others or asserting moral superiority. It is about aligning your internal life with the principles that help you thrive. If others are offended or baffled by your choices, that is their interpretation. You can still engage them with empathy, showing genuine interest in their concerns, while also holding firm to your understanding that you can interpret events differently. Over time, some will come to appreciate the peace you exude. Others may continue to resist. In either case, you remain free to stand by your decision to view the world through a lens that fosters resilience and possibility. Sometimes we fear that if we do not acknowledge how tough something is, we will not be prepared for the worst. But in truth, acknowledging difficulty does not have to come at the cost of hope. You can say, "This is incredibly challenging. I am feeling stressed and uncertain, but I trust that I can adapt, or at least that I can respond in a way that stays true to my values." That statement encapsulates both realism and faith in one's capacity to meet adversity. It's not a naive fantasy that everything will work out perfectly. It is a balanced stance that leaves room for both the difficulty of the situation and the enduring power of your own agency. Because language plays such a massive role in how we frame reality, it can be enlightening to notice how you speak about your life on a daily basis. Do you frequently say, "I can't," "I have to," "I'm stuck"? Each of these phrases, repeated often, reinforces a narrative of limitation and obligation. By consciously revising these phrases, "I can explore," "I choose," "I'm navigating challenges," you gradually reprogram your mind to see yourself as a dynamic actor rather than a powerless subject. Over time, these linguistic shifts sink into your subconscious, and you'll find it more natural to approach tasks and dilemmas with a sense of initiative and resourcefulness. It might feel awkward at first, but like any habit, it becomes easier with consistent effort. You will likely catch yourself defaulting to negative language patterns, yet the moment you do, you have the opportunity to replace them. That is the seed of transformation, planted one sentence at a time. Deciding your reality often leads to greater emotional intelligence. As you become more aware of the stories you tell about your experiences, you also grow more aware of your emotional triggers. Instead of being ambushed by anger or despair, you might start to see them forming, almost like clouds gathering in the distance. This heightened awareness allows you to decide, sometimes preemptively, how to deal with them. You can create a plan for managing stress before it becomes crippling. You might introduce simple grounding techniques or take a short break to breathe. This proactive stance might not eliminate the emotion, but it prevents you from being overtaken without warning. Emotions become signals to investigate rather than commands to obey. In certain spiritual or philosophical traditions, there is a concept that you create your world through your intentions and your convictions. While this can sound mystical, there is a psychological resonance to the idea that what you deeply believe about yourself and the world shapes how you move through life. If you believe that you are fundamentally incompetent, you will likely avoid situations that challenge you to grow. If you believe that the world is devoid of kindness, you will probably ignore moments of generosity or even interpret them suspiciously. On the other hand, if you hold a core belief that you can learn new skills, you will be more willing to try and fail, eventually discovering your capacity to improve. If you believe that kindness exists, you will notice small acts of goodwill, and you might even be inspired to spread them yourself. Thus, your beliefs become a self-fulfilling framework. One of the biggest leaps in personal development is recognizing that you can choose and refine these beliefs, rather than simply inheriting them from your upbringing or from society. However, it is also important not to berate yourself if you catch negative beliefs embedded in your psyche. For instance, if you discover that you have been telling yourself for years, "I am not lovable," or "I am always unlucky," it might initially feel like you've failed at having a positive mindset. But remember, these beliefs often form as protective mechanisms or as the result of repeated life events that shaped your worldview. Criticizing yourself for holding them can add another layer of negativity to dismantle. Instead, treat these discovered beliefs as opportunities to rework the internal narrative. You might begin by questioning their validity. Is it true that I'm never lucky, or were there times I overlooked where I was fortunate? You can also replace them gradually with more balanced perspectives. I sometimes have bad luck, but I've also had good outcomes I didn't expect. I can be open to more of those positive moments. Over time, such reframing wears down the old belief until it no longer dictates your actions so rigidly. As you practice reshaping your internal dialogue, you might find that certain environments or relationships become more challenging to maintain. For example, If you are accustomed to frequent complaining sessions with friends who share a consistently pessimistic worldview, you may start feeling out of place as you grow more mindful of how those complaints feed a particular reality. This does not mean you must abandon your friends or distance yourself from everyone who vented frustrations with you in the past. It does mean, though, that you might introduce new conversations, perhaps discussing mutual goals or small things you appreciate. You might also encourage them to consider a different viewpoint when they are stuck in negativity. Some may appreciate it, while others might be resistant. Either way, you have the freedom to shape your dialogues in a more constructive direction. At times, the largest transformation arises from how you handle disappointment in your own performance or in your relationships. When we do not meet our standards, it's easy to lapse into harsh self-critique. We might view a single setback as irrefutable proof that we are incapable. Deciding your reality in these instances means pausing to separate the event from your identity. You failed at a task, but that does not define your worth. You had an argument with a loved one, but that does not necessarily doom the relationship. By contextualizing these moments, you give yourself the space to respond proactively. Maybe you need to spend more time practicing a skill, or maybe you need to communicate more openly and compassionately in your relationship. The ability to pivot away from self-condemnation toward constructive action is the hallmark of someone who truly understands they can shape their inner world. Relationships themselves can become a rich field for practicing this mindset. Each interaction is an opportunity to decide how you interpret the other person's words and actions. Where once you might have jumped to "they're doing this to annoy me," you can now consider maybe they are struggling with something. Or if a loved one seems distant, instead of concluding they don't care about me, you can wonder, perhaps they need some space or are dealing with stress I'm not aware of. This small shift in interpretation can dramatically alter your emotional response. Instead of reacting with resentment, you might respond with empathy or patience, which in turn can improve the relationship. Of course, not every scenario will end happily, but many tensions stem from misinterpretations that spiral into conflict. By deciding to question your assumptions, you dismantle many of these unnecessary hostilities before they escalate. Even in your professional life, the idea of deciding your reality can yield significant benefits. Consider how many people approach their jobs with a sense of dread or obligation. They talk about the daily grind and how they have to go to work. If you shift from this language to "I choose to work here because it provides a living and a chance to use my skills," you might uncover new motivations. You could become more invested in learning and development, or you might start exploring ways to transition to a field you genuinely care about. Similarly, when facing a difficult boss or a challenging project, you could see it as an unsolvable misery or as a puzzle to be navigated with clever thinking and emotional resilience. The puzzle mindset engages your creativity and problem-solving abilities, whereas the misery mindset drains your energy and stifles potential solutions. Sometimes, people worry that constantly deciding their reality will make them overly serious or self-critical, always monitoring thoughts. In reality, as the practice becomes part of your daily rhythm, it starts to feel natural rather than forced. Yes, early on, you might devote conscious energy to noticing your interpretations and altering them. Over time, however, these mental shifts can become second nature, much like learning to drive a car. In the beginning, you check every mirror and gear shift meticulously, but later you handle these tasks fluidly. So too with deciding your reality. Eventually, you sense your negative stories forming and adjust them almost automatically, freeing up your mind for other pursuits. In fact, you might even experience more lightness and spontaneity because you are no longer bogged down by the weight of unexamined negativity. This renewed sense of spontaneity can lead you to discover new interests or passions. When your mindset is open to possibility, your curiosity naturally expands. You may try out new hobbies or revisit old ones you abandoned. You could find yourself more willing to travel, learn a language, or engage in social activities you once dismissed. The more you practice stepping outside your comfort zone, the more you realize that fear often stems from internal stories about what could go wrong. By reorienting those stories toward what could be gained, you reclaim the adventurous side of yourself that might have been stifled by years of self-doubt or routine. Another critical aspect of deciding your reality is self-compassion. We often forget that our inner dialogue should be supportive, especially when we confront limitations or mistakes. There is a tendency to think that pushing ourselves harshly is the only way to succeed, but research and personal anecdotes alike suggest otherwise. When you are gentle with yourself in moments of failure, you create a safe emotional space to learn from those failures. Instead of saying, "I'm so stupid," or "I'll never get this right," you can say, "I'm still figuring this out," or "I see what I did wrong. Let's fix it." This shift may sound minor, but it is revolutionary in practice because it prevents the downward spiral of shame that can stall progress. In interpersonal conflicts, deciding your reality can be the difference between an escalating argument and a productive resolution. If someone criticizes you, the immediate impulse might be to defend yourself or retaliate. But a person who understands they can shape their reality will pause and question, "Is this criticism something I can learn from? What is their perspective? How can I respond in a way that moves this conversation forward?" That pause and reflection can diffuse tension. It also models for others a calmer way of handling disagreements. Even if the other person remains combative, you maintain control of your internal environment, avoiding the emotional drain that comes from reactive anger. Over time, this approach can build a reputation of thoughtfulness and level-headedness, which in itself opens doors to better communication and mutual respect. In many ways, deciding your reality aligns with living a life of intention. Instead of drifting through the day responding to stimuli, you begin the morning with an awareness that your mindset matters. You notice yourself engaging in tasks with a sense of choice rather than resignation. You look at relationships as opportunities to connect meaningfully rather than as accidents of circumstance. You see challenges as stepping stones rather than as impassable walls. Gradually, this orientation makes the ordinary become extraordinary, not because you've changed reality on the outside, but because you've stripped away the layers of negative interpretation that once obscured simple joys and possibilities. An often overlooked dimension of this practice is how it influences our physical health. Negative stress and chronic rumination can wreak havoc on the body, contributing to poor sleep, weakened immune response, and cardiovascular strain. When you actively manage your interpretations, choosing calmer responses and focusing on solutions, you may find your stress levels more manageable. This doesn't mean stress disappears. After all, we cannot eliminate every external pressure. But how you process these pressures dramatically affects your physiological responses. You might notice better quality of sleep, improved energy levels, and even a stronger immune system when you're not perpetually in a fight or flight mode triggered by catastrophic thinking. This, in turn, creates a positive feedback loop. A calmer body supports a calmer mind, which supports better decision-making, which reduces stress further, and so on. Additionally, deciding your reality teaches you to embrace the unknown. Life is uncertain by nature. We can plan meticulously, only to have events unfold in unexpected ways. While some might interpret uncertainty as danger, others see it as a realm of possibility. By continually reminding yourself that you can decide how to interpret events, you reduce the fear of what might happen. You accept that whatever does happen, you retain the power to respond thoughtfully. This perspective can free you from the paralysis that comes from overthinking worst-case scenarios. Instead of succumbing to dread, you acknowledge that tomorrow may bring unforeseen challenges or opportunities, but either way, you will greet them with an open mind. This acceptance is what transforms anxiety into something more akin to anticipation or curiosity. As your sense of agency grows, you may start to feel a heightened responsibility for the impact you have on others. Realizing that you actively construct your own experience makes you acutely aware that your words and actions can significantly influence someone else's experience. You might become more mindful of how you speak to coworkers, friends, and family, recognizing that negative or dismissive comments could shape their reality in detrimental ways. Conversely, an encouraging word or a gesture of kindness can uplift them, nudging their internal narrative toward hope. Far from making you feel burdened, this awareness can be empowering, as you see that small positive acts can ripple outward, improving the environment you share with others. With this responsibility comes a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that you play a role in co-creating a more compassionate world. However, it is also essential to maintain healthy boundaries. Deciding your reality does not mean you become responsible for fixing everyone else's mindset. You can offer support and model constructive perspectives, but you cannot live someone else's journey for them. There may be people who are entrenched in negativity or blame, and no matter how much you try, they resist any alternative viewpoint. In such cases, you can remain compassionate, but refrain from taking on their emotional load. Doing so respects their autonomy as well as your own. You can show them a path by how you live, but it is ultimately their choice whether or not to follow. It's also worth noting that this practice is not a one-time epiphany. You do not wake up one day, decide reality once, and then glide effortlessly through life. It is a continual process. Some days, you will feel like you have mastered your emotional responses, finding clarity and composure with ease. Other days, old habits or external stresses will tempt you into negativity or despair. The beauty of this practice is that you always have the next moment to try again. If you slip into complaining or catastrophizing, you can recognize it and pivot. Each pivot strengthens your resilience, reinforcing that even slips are part of the journey. Over time, you will likely notice that these slips occur less frequently, and when they do, you recover more swiftly. One practical way to sustain this lifelong process is to celebrate small wins. For instance, if you catch yourself mid-complaint and then choose a more solution-oriented stance, give yourself mental credit. Recognize that you have just exercised your power to decide. Acknowledging these victories, even if they seem minor, is like adding fuel to your motivational engine. It reminds you that change is happening in real time, reinforcing the habits you want to cultivate. Such self-acknowledgement is not vanity. It is a healthy way to mark progress, much like an athlete celebrating a faster lap time. It encourages consistency, which is crucial for lasting transformation. With consistency in mind, It's also beneficial to incorporate regular reflection. This can be done in a variety of ways. Some people prefer a structured approach, like journaling each morning or evening. Others might set aside a weekly review session to think about the past 7 days. In either case, the goal is to look at how you responded to challenges, where you chose empowering interpretations, and where you got stuck in old patterns. Reflection allows you to see trends over time. Maybe you notice that you handle workplace stress more effectively, but still struggle with family tensions, or vice versa. Identifying these patterns helps you fine-tune your practice, directing attention to areas that need more conscious effort. This iterative cycle of awareness, action, and reflection forms the backbone of sustainable personal growth. As you deepen this journey, you might find yourself drawn to spiritual or philosophical studies that resonate with the concept of inner agency, whether it's Stoicism, Buddhism, certain strands of mindfulness, or any other tradition that emphasizes the power of the human mind to shape experience. You will likely discover common threads in how they address suffering and choice. This broader perspective can provide additional tools and insights, reminding you that countless others have walked similar paths across history. Understanding that you are part of a larger continuum of seekers can be comforting and motivating. It situates your personal efforts in a grand tapestry of human wisdom and inquiry. An interesting effect of refining your inner narrative is that it often clarifies your external goals. When you operate under default assumptions, perhaps that you must follow a certain career path or maintain certain social norms, you might not question whether these align with your authentic self. But once you become aware of how profoundly your interpretations guide your life, you may also start asking bigger questions. What truly matters to me? Which values do I want to base my decisions on? Sometimes these questions lead to significant life changes, switching careers, moving to a new location, or rethinking long-term relationships. Other times, the changes are more subtle, like approaching your existing job with a renewed sense of purpose. Either way, that sense of alignment between your choices and your deeper values fosters a coherence that is incredibly satisfying. That said, the path is not without emotional risks. As you peel away layers of inherited beliefs or society's expectations, you might confront a sense of uncertainty or even loss. If you have always defined yourself in terms of external achievements or the validation of others, letting go of that framework can feel like stepping into the unknown. This is where courage enters the picture. The courage to see yourself differently, the courage to face the possibility of disapproval, and the courage to trust that a more authentic life is worth the initial upheaval. In those moments, it helps to remind yourself why you began this journey, to gain the freedom to decide what your experiences mean, to reclaim power that was scattered or dormant, and to lead a life that feels genuinely aligned rather than dictated by fear or habit. As you become more adept at crafting a reality that nurtures growth, you might also revisit past experiences with fresh eyes. Incidents you once saw as purely negative or traumatizing might reveal threads of insight or hidden resilience. This does not mean you condone harmful behavior or rewrite history dishonestly. It simply means you look back with an awareness that you survived, you learned, and you are here now, capable of reframing even painful memories in a way that fosters compassion for yourself and possibly for others involved. This retrospective transformation can be deeply healing, turning bitter memories into less burdensome stories. You might even find lessons in them that guide your current decisions, ensuring you do not repeat old patterns or allow unexamined wounds to overshadow the present. Over time, this practice of deciding reality can lead you to a place of deep gratitude, not a forced or performative gratitude, but a genuine, pervasive sense that life is a gift. When you understand that you shape so much of your internal experience, the everyday moments gain a new vibrancy. A simple sunrise can be a profound reminder of renewal. A difficult conversation that ends in reconciliation can feel like a testament to the power of choosing empathy. Even a slow commute can become an opportunity to reflect or listen to something inspiring, rather than a torment you endure. All these shifts accumulate into a life that feels richer and more connected. Not because external reality has drastically changed, but because your perspective on it has. It is also illuminating to observe how the world responds to someone practicing this mindset. Often, opportunities you never noticed before begin to appear. Friends introduce you to new ventures, or you stumble upon resources that align with your goals. This is sometimes labeled as luck or serendipity, but it is also partly a function of your changed awareness. When you decide to interpret situations more positively and proactively, you are more likely to spot chance openings and less likely to dismiss them as irrelevant or too risky. Therefore, what might look like an influx of good fortune can also be understood as a result of a receptivity that you have fostered through your interpretations. In certain instances, this orientation can even have a ripple effect on your broader community. If you lead a team at work, for example, consistently choosing a constructive viewpoint can foster an environment where team members feel safe to innovate and admit mistakes without being shamed. If you are a parent, modeling resilience and positivity can profoundly shape how your children learn to interpret the world. They watch how you handle setbacks, they listen to how you describe challenges, and they absorb your emotional cues. By consistently demonstrating that you view problems as solvable and emotions as manageable, you empower them to develop similar coping skills. Indeed, your personal transformation can become a catalyst for collective well-being. Yet, none of this implies a life free from hardship. Illness, loss, betrayal, these remain potential facets of the human experience. The difference lies in how these hardships are integrated into your overall narrative. Instead of them becoming the final word on your existence, they become chapters that test your resolve and deepen your perspective. This idea is reflected in the journeys of countless resilient individuals who, despite enduring harrowing conditions, maintain hope and even extend compassion to others. They are living proof that external circumstances do not have to dictate inner devastation. Certainly, pain is felt, sorrow is real, but the inner spirit, fueled by a conscious choice to keep seeking meaning, can remain intact or even grow stronger. In some phases of life, you might question whether you have truly adopted this mindset or merely flirted with it. Periods of doubt, confusion, or feeling stuck can surface. This is normal. Growth is rarely linear. You might experience plateaus or even regressions where old habits resurface more intensely. During these times, it can be helpful to revisit your foundational practices, whether that is journaling, meditation, therapy, or discussing your challenges with a supportive friend. These are opportunities to reaffirm the core tenet that you do, indeed, have the ability to decide your reality, even if it feels distant at the moment. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs happen after a period of stagnation, precisely because you confront the limits of your current approach and adjust accordingly. One of the most transformative aspects of this practice is how it teaches you to let go of what you cannot control. We spend so much energy trying to reshape external conditions, other people's opinions, bureaucratic systems, market fluctuations, that we overlook the power we hold within. When you consistently focus on what you can control, you not only reduce futile frustration, but you also become more effective at influencing the external world in meaningful ways. By channeling your energy and creativity into areas where you have agency, you produce better results, and ironically, this often leads to greater external influence. People respect someone who takes responsibility for their part and does not waste time complaining about what is out of reach. That respect can open doors, forging alliances and mutual support that might not have emerged under a more powerless narrative. If you pay attention, you may notice that people who embody the principle of deciding their reality often have a certain presence about them. They may not be the loudest or the flashiest, but they emanate a calm confidence that is magnetizing. They treat setbacks as detours rather than dead ends, and they treat triumphs with a sense of gratitude rather than smugness. Their relationships tend to be characterized by openness and respect, precisely because they see interactions as opportunities rather than battlegrounds. Such individuals can inspire you to strengthen your own practice, showing you that it is possible to live with integrity, resilience, and genuine warmth. You might seek them out as mentors or simply observe the way they navigate life's obstacles, gleaning insight into how you can refine your own approach. Another significant milestone in this journey is recognizing how deciding your reality intertwines with forgiveness, both of yourself and others. Holding on to resentment, whether it is self-directed or aimed at someone else, anchors you to a particular version of events. It cements a story of wrongdoing and perpetuates emotional pain. By intentionally shifting your perspective, you may come to see that continuing to resent yourself or someone else is a form of self-imposed suffering. Forgiveness does not erase the harm done. Rather, it releases you from the grip of that harm's narrative. You acknowledge the wound, but also acknowledge your power to move forward without clinging to bitterness. This process can be delicate and may require considerable reflection or professional help, especially when deep trauma is involved. But its essence aligns perfectly with the notion that you decide what your experiences mean and how they shape you. In forging this path, you might also discover that humor becomes a valuable ally. Sometimes the ability to laugh at yourself or a situation is the quickest route to reframing it. Laughter can puncture the tension of taking every setback too seriously. It can remind you that while life is complex and challenges are real, there is also room for levity. Embracing humor does not trivialize pain. It simply offers a counterbalance. It can be especially helpful when you recognize that your negative stories or anxieties, while they feel real, might be somewhat exaggerated in the grand scope of life. A gentle chuckle at your own worries can soften their hold, allowing you to approach the situation with greater ease. As you continue to evolve, you will likely gather stories of your own, moments when you shifted your interpretation and witnessed a positive outcome. You might share these stories with friends who are going through something similar. In doing so, you become a beacon of what is possible. Sharing your experiences can also deepen your own understanding of how far you have come. Teaching or advising others solidifies your grasp of the practice because it requires you to articulate the principles and illustrate them with examples. In this mutual exchange, both parties benefit. The listener gains insight from your journey, and you gain clarity by revisiting and affirming your core beliefs. Sometimes the most profound changes occur when you least expect them. You might be facing a mundane situation, say a long wait in a grocery store line, and catch yourself grumbling internally. Then you remember, I can decide my reality here. You might take a deep breath, look around, notice the people near you, maybe even strike up a friendly conversation, or simply observe something interesting in your environment. Suddenly, what was a moment of annoyance becomes a moment of presence and connection. This subtle shift is not earth-shattering on its own, but if you stack up 100 such moments across weeks and months, you start to see a substantial difference in the texture of your daily life. You become someone who finds opportunities for mindfulness and kindness in situations that once triggered impatience and frustration. This skill extends to bigger life decisions as well. When faced with a major crossroads, perhaps a career change, a move to another city, or a serious commitment to a relationship, you can approach the decision with the understanding that no matter which path you choose, you will still be responsible for deciding your interpretation of the events that follow. This recognition can alleviate decision paralysis because you see that your well-being does not hinge solely on external outcomes. You will apply your mindset to make the best of whatever path unfolds. Paradoxically, this can lead to more decisive action because you trust yourself to adapt and thrive without needing absolute certainty that a particular choice is foolproof. Naturally, we must account for times when external events are truly catastrophic: wars, natural disasters, systemic injustices. In such cases, our agency might feel very small indeed. Yet even then, history shows countless examples of individuals who retain a sense of purpose and resilience in the face of tremendous adversity. They do so not by denying the severity of their circumstances, but by maintaining a sense of internal sovereignty over their responses. Some become leaders or activists who channel their anguish into movements for change. Others simply survive with their dignity and empathy intact, which in itself is a profound statement of defiance against despair. Whether on a grand scale or a personal one, deciding your reality in times of crisis is an act of courage that can light a spark of hope for others witnessing it. At this point, it becomes clear that deciding your reality is deeply intertwined with ethical considerations. If you recognize that you have the power to shape your own perspective, you might also realize the moral responsibility to use that power wisely. For instance, does your chosen interpretation encourage honesty and fairness, or does it enable you to exploit loopholes at others' expense? Do you remain aware of your interconnectedness with other people, or do you slip into a purely self-serving viewpoint? The Stoics often emphasized the common good and living in harmony with nature, suggesting that the best use of personal freedom is to contribute to the betterment of all. While interpretations of this vary, it is worth contemplating how your constructed reality aligns with your broader sense of right and wrong. Another dimension of this ethical responsibility concerns authenticity. Deciding your reality should not become an exercise in self-deception or constructing a facade to mask unresolved issues. Authenticity calls for honesty about what you feel and what you need. If you are sad, you can own that sadness while still deciding to treat yourself kindly and seek solutions or support. If your current reality feels confining, you can admit that and look for ways to expand it rather than pretending all is well. Being honest with yourself is crucial because it ensures that your chosen interpretations are not just band-aids slapped over deeper wounds. True healing and growth come from facing the wound, understanding it, and then shaping a narrative that is both rooted in truth and oriented toward hope. This orientation toward truth ties back to the Stoic idea that while we don't control external events, we do control our judgments. Aligning our judgments with reality rather than escaping into fantasy is part of what keeps us grounded. It's a balancing act, refusing to be defined by hardship, but also refusing to deny hardship. Such clarity allows you to respond effectively, guided by both rational understanding and empathetic concern. In our modern context, where distractions and misinformation abound, cultivating this clear-sightedness can be a profound act of discernment. With continued practice, you might notice that moments of genuine presence become more frequent. Presence, in this sense, is the ability to be fully engaged with what is happening, without constantly wishing you were somewhere else or under different circumstances. You accept that you are here, now, and you decide how to be. This presence can be surprisingly transformative in even the simplest routines: cooking dinner, folding laundry, or taking a walk. When you bring a chosen interpretation of attentiveness and gratitude to these mundane tasks, they can become meditative acts that nourish your spirit. This might sound idealistic, but countless people who have adopted mindfulness practices report a new appreciation for life's everyday details. They find solace and sometimes even joy in ordinary moments, which previously passed unnoticed in the rush of anxious thoughts. As your capacity for presence strengthens, you may also develop deeper empathy for others. You see that everyone around you is likewise navigating their own inner stories, some more troubled than others. This empathy can reduce reactive judgments. Instead of labeling someone as lazy or rude, you might consider what narratives they are trapped in. This does not excuse harmful behavior, but it provides a framework for understanding and potentially helping rather than condemning. Empathy, in turn, enriches your relationships and encourages a sense of community. You begin to appreciate that everyone you meet is a fellow traveler in the complex terrain of human perception. This shift from judgment to understanding can have a profound impact on how conflicts are resolved and how friendships are nurtured. With empathy in mind, you may also find yourself more drawn to acts of service or advocacy. When you realize that changing one's perspective can be life-altering, you might want to support others in discovering their own ability to decide their reality. This can take many forms: mentoring a younger colleague, volunteering in a community program, sharing your story publicly, or simply being a good listener for someone in crisis. Each act of support potentially helps another person awaken to their own agency. Over time, this can become part of your purpose, spreading the insight that within each of us lies a reservoir of choice waiting to be tapped. That said, it is crucial to remember that not everyone is at a place where they can embrace this concept readily. Some individuals may be so entrenched in trauma or immediate crisis that asking them to shift their perspective feels insensitive. In such cases, offering practical support and compassion might be the best immediate approach. Talking about the power of mindset can still have a place, but it should be woven with empathy and a deep respect for the reality of their suffering. Context matters, and forcing a perspective shift prematurely can come across as dismissive or patronizing. Better to walk alongside someone, helping to meet their immediate needs, and introduce the idea of personal agency when they have enough stability to explore it. In our digital era, social media amplifies both challenges and opportunities. On one hand, it's easy to compare yourself to curated images of success and happiness, fueling negative self-talk. On the other hand, you have access to a wide array of resources that can bolster your mindset: articles, online communities, inspirational talks. Deciding your reality in the digital age involves being discerning about the content you consume, and the interactions you engage in. You might choose to unfollow accounts that perpetuate negativity or unrealistic standards. You might join groups that focus on personal development or mental health support. By curating your digital environment to align with your chosen perspective, you reinforce the thought patterns you wish to nurture. Yet, as you navigate this digital realm, remember the importance of real-world grounding. Online inspiration is valuable, but the most profound changes occur when you apply these insights to tangible experiences: your work, your relationships, your daily routines. Make a point to balance screen time with hands-on activities that allow you to practice presence: cooking, exercising, creating art, gardening, or simply enjoying nature. The physical world offers a unique richness that can anchor your practice in reality, reminding you that your powers of interpretation are intimately tied to embodied experience. If you ever find yourself sliding back into a narrative of helplessness, try to recall moments when you successfully chose a different outlook. It could be something as small as deciding not to let a rude comment ruin your day. Perhaps you witnessed how your internal shift made the situation more bearable, or even turned it into an opportunity for empathy. These recollections function like mental buoyancy aids, lifting you when negative stories threaten to pull you under. In a sense, they are living proof that you have done this before and can do it again. Over time, these experiences accumulate into a personal library of resilience. You become ever more convinced, on a visceral level, that you are capable of deciding how you experience life's events. This growing conviction not only helps you but can also serve as a guiding light for others who are searching for ways to cope or transform. In this way, the effect of your internal decisions extends beyond you, weaving through your sphere of influence and sometimes reaching people you might never meet directly. In certain moments, you may be struck by how simultaneously simple and challenging this practice can be. The core idea, "I decide my reality by choosing my interpretations," is straightforward enough to articulate in a sentence. Yet, living it out consistently requires ongoing vigilance, introspection, and courage. It asks you to confront your own mental habits, some of which are deeply ingrained. It might also require you to stand out from the crowd if the prevailing social norms lean toward cynicism or passive acceptance. But the payoff, a sense of inner freedom and the awareness that you are co-creating your life experience, is immeasurable. As this sense of inner freedom grows, you might also discover a greater capacity for spontaneity and joy. When you free your mind from rigid narratives of limitation or fear, the present moment becomes more accessible. You find yourself dancing without worrying about how you look, laughing without fearing judgment, and resting without guilt. These are not trivial pleasures. They are vital expressions of a mind that is not constantly confined by negative stories. In such moments, deciding your reality feels more like a dance than a chore, a fluid and intuitive process that brings you into closer harmony with your own vitality. Embracing this harmony does not mean every day will be jubilant. Stressful deadlines, emotional conflicts, and unexpected crises will continue to surface. The difference is that you approach them with a steady confidence in your capacity to interpret them constructively. Even in the midst of chaos, you can experience pockets of calm because you know that your internal state remains within your domain. It is a kind of psychological self-reliance that does not isolate you from others, but rather positions you to interact with them from a place of balance. One of the final frontiers in this journey is exploring how deciding reality intersects with your sense of identity. We often define ourselves through labels: introvert, extrovert, anxious, carefree, successful, failure, and so on. While some labels can be helpful to understand ourselves, they can also become constraints. If you hold too tightly to a label, you might overlook the possibility that you can change. Deciding your reality invites you to see your identity as more fluid. You are not fixed as a certain type of person forever. You are a process, continually shaped by how you navigate experiences. This can be liberating, especially if you have carried limiting labels for years. It can also be disorienting if those labels provided a sense of safety or belonging, but the overarching message remains: you are more expansive than any single label suggests, and each new choice redefines who you are. As you explore this expanded sense of self, you may also notice a deeper capacity for compassion toward those who struggle with rigid self-definitions. Perhaps you see someone who is desperately trying to maintain a facade of being infallible, or someone who clings to a victim identity because it provides a semblance of comfort. Recognizing how liberating it is to move beyond these boundaries, you might feel drawn to gently encourage them to consider other possibilities. Even if they are not ready, your openness might plant a seed that later grows when they find themselves ready to shift their perspective. The ripple effect continues in unexpected directions. Your work environment might become more constructive, your family might adopt more supportive communication patterns, and your friendships might deepen in authenticity. None of these outcomes are guaranteed, of course, but they become more possible when you consistently bring a growth-oriented mindset to each interaction. People sense your steady ground, and some may feel inspired to mirror it. Even if the changes around you are subtle, you will notice them. It is a testament to how your internal decisions can gradually shape external reality, at least in your immediate sphere. And so the journey continues, day by day, choice by choice. Deciding your reality is not about achieving a final state of enlightenment where nothing ever troubles you. It is about honoring the ongoing nature of human life, where each new situation presents an opportunity to shape your mental and emotional response. There will be setbacks and breakthroughs, tears and laughter, defeats and victories. Through it all, you maintain the unwavering knowledge that you're not merely a passenger on a ship tossed by the sea. You're also at the helm, charting a course with every decision about how to see, feel, and act. This is both a burden of responsibility and a gift of freedom. Life's inevitabilities, aging, mortality, the changes in our bodies and minds, can also be reframed within this practice. Instead of dreading every new wrinkle or every physical limitation, you can decide to find beauty or meaning in the process of growing older. You might appreciate the wisdom or perspective you gain, even as you adapt to changes in stamina or routine. In a culture that often fears aging, you become someone who sees it as a natural evolution, neither to be fought nor resigned to, but engaged with consciously. This shift can reduce anxiety about the future and allow you to live more fully in the present. As we near the horizon of this lengthy reflection, it is fitting to remind ourselves that deciding your reality ultimately hinges on each day's incremental moments of choice. Grand philosophical insights or sweeping life changes might punctuate the journey, but the real work happens in those quiet, daily decisions to notice your thoughts and guide them with intention. It might be the decision to take a deep breath rather than yell, to trust your ability to learn rather than declare defeat, to see a difficult event as a stepping stone rather than a dead end. These small acts, done consistently, accumulate into a profound shift in how you experience life. Over months and years, they rewrite your internal script from one of helplessness to one of engaged participation. It is worth acknowledging that this process also requires a willingness to stand in the discomfort of unknowing. Sometimes you cannot see the immediate payoff for deciding to maintain a positive outlook or choosing kindness over anger. You may not always be certain that a more constructive interpretation will yield a tangible benefit. In these instances, you rely on faith in the principle itself, the understanding that regardless of external results, you are shaping your inner world in a direction that aligns with health, growth, and connection. That faith might be tested, especially in prolonged hardships, but holding on to it can provide a beacon that guides you through the darkest nights. Indeed, this faith is bolstered by the evidence you gather along the way, instances where your perspective shift improved a situation, interactions that turned out more positively because you chose empathy, or personal breakthroughs that came after you decided not to be defeated by your initial failure. Each piece of evidence serves as a reassuring note, reminding you that you are on a viable path. You do not walk blindly. You walk with a sense of tested principles that have, time and again, shown their worth in the crucible of real life. To sustain this practice over the long haul, you may also need periods of rest and introspection where you step back from the constant effort of self-awareness. Balance is essential. If you become obsessed with always monitoring your mind, you could slip into a state of hypervigilance that is itself stressful. Allow yourself moments of gentle detachment where you simply live without scrutinizing every thought. These pauses allow your psyche to integrate the lessons you have been practicing. Think of it like a muscle that grows not just from exercise, but also from rest. The cyclical pattern of effort and relaxation ensures that your growth is stable rather than brittle. In the broader tapestry of your life, deciding your reality can serve as a unifying thread that weaves through various phases and challenges. Whether you are navigating adolescence, midlife, or your golden years, the principle remains consistently applicable. You have a say in how you interpret and respond to what happens. These interpretations, layered over time, form the unique artwork of your personal story. And just as an artist can revisit earlier brushstrokes to refine them, you can reflect on your past experiences and reinterpret them in ways that serve your present growth. This capacity for reinterpretation extends not only to your own life, but to how you view humanity at large. Realizing that everyone has the power of interpretation, though not everyone is aware of it, can foster a deep sense of compassion. People's actions, even harmful ones, can be seen as arising from distorted narratives or unexamined pain. While this does not justify destructive behaviors, it does offer a more nuanced understanding that might pave the way for healing dialogues or necessary boundaries set without vindictiveness. Seeing the human capacity for choice, both its potential and its pitfalls, can deepen your empathy for the collective struggle we share. In tying all these threads together, it becomes evident that deciding your reality is not merely a mental trick, but a foundational stance toward life. It influences how you face adversity, how you celebrate joy, how you interact with others, and how you evolve over time. It resonates with ancient wisdom, modern psychology, and personal anecdotes across diverse cultures. Although the practice can look different for each individual, some rely on prayer, others on meditation, others on reflective writing. The underlying principle remains the same. The mind is not a passive recipient of external events. It is an active shaper of your subjective world. Thus, if you find yourself wondering whether it is truly possible to change your life by changing your mind, remember the countless examples, both historical and personal, of individuals who have done so. They may not always label it deciding your reality, but the outcome is akin to stepping into a different mode of being, one less bound by fear and negativity. Their stories often include peaks and valleys, underscoring that this path is neither linear nor easy. Yet they persist, fueled by the conviction that within each human heart lies the capacity for renewal and transformation. You too can harness that capacity. It starts with small choices in ordinary moments. It flourishes when you practice awareness and compassion toward yourself and others. It deepens with each hurdle you surmount, each setback you learn from, and each glimpse of how your interpretations shape outcomes. Over time, it becomes so ingrained that you may look back and scarcely recognize the older version of yourself, someone who thought life merely happened to them. Now, you know that while life certainly unfolds with a complexity beyond your control, your internal world need not be at its mercy. You can shape, decide, and build. You can keep hope alive even when circumstances are dire. You can grow kinder when the world seems cruel. You can refine your path even when you stumble. And when you finally reach a point of reflecting on your journey, whether in the midst of a life transition or in quieter twilight moments, you may notice a profound sense of gratitude for the power you discovered within yourself. The power to decide your reality becomes a subtle but defining element of who you are. It is a gift you perpetually give yourself, an ever-present invitation to meet life not with resignation, but with a gentle, unwavering affirmation. I choose to see this and respond to this in a way that honors my capacity for wisdom and love. And in that choice, you unlock a dimension of human possibility that remains inaccessible to those who do not realize such a choice exists. Ultimately, deciding your reality is about giving yourself permission to inhabit the role of creator rather than mere observer. You create narratives that support healing, love, courage, and discovery. You observe the world's complexity, adapt, and refine as needed, but you do not relinquish your sense of authorship. In a world where so much feels uncertain, this authorship is a rare and precious certainty. The knowledge that come what may, your interpretations are yours to craft. In cherishing that knowledge, you affirm the depth and dignity of your own humanity. You stand in solidarity with centuries of thinkers and seekers who recognize the same truth. And each day, you write yet another line in the unfolding story of a life led not by default, but by deliberate design. You also come to appreciate that this deliberate design is a continuous act. You do not retire from the practice once you feel you have improved. Rather, you carry on designing and redesigning with each new season of your life. Your younger self had certain dreams and interpretations. Your older self may have evolved beyond them. That evolution is not a betrayal of who you were, but a testament to growth. By allowing these transformations, you ensure that deciding your reality remains vibrant and flexible rather than rigidly dogmatic. It becomes a living principle, adaptable to the shifting sands of circumstance and the emerging layers of your psyche. In the end, deciding your reality aligns you more deeply with the flow of life itself. Life is movement, biological, emotional, societal. When you cling to a fixed narrative, you resist that flow and invite tension. When you accept that you can shape your perspective in harmony with life's movement, you navigate with greater ease. You become like a skilled surfer, anticipating waves and adjusting your stance without panicking. The ocean is still powerful and unpredictable, but your skill in adapting to each wave reflects your mastery of choice. And it is in that ongoing dance between wave and surfer, between event and interpretation, where the richest beauty of life unfolds. So continue on this journey, steady in your recognition that you hold the power to decide. Embrace the daily practice, the endless refinement, the occasional missteps, and the triumphant breakthroughs. Remind yourself often that this is not about living in denial or forced positivity. It is about honest engagement with each moment, each emotion, each challenge. In so doing, you author a life that, regardless of its external trappings, holds a quiet but potent sense of meaning. You stand upon the bedrock of self-determination, aware that circumstances will shift, relationships will change, and time will pass. But through it all, the pen remains in your hand, writing the story of how you see, feel, and respond to the world. In the quiet aftertaste of these realizations, one might pause to reflect on how deciding reality extends beyond self-preservation and into the realm of genuine flourishing. In that pause, you might see how each choice you make, each mental reframe, each shift from complaint to possibility, carries with it the seeds of a richer life. You may be standing in a crowded room, and while others dwell on the inconveniences, you choose to notice the connections, the shared laughter, the subtle kindness in a stranger's gesture. That choice changes your experience entirely. The memory you carry forward is no longer dominated by annoyance. Instead, it's informed by a sense of community or gentle humanity. These subtle but powerful movements of attention transform the fabric of daily life from mere survival into something akin to ongoing lived art. And that artistry of interpretation can bestow a sense of radiance even in mundane routines. Consider the mundane hours we all spend doing tasks we might call chores. Dishes must be washed, trash must be taken out, floors must be swept. Without mindful attention, these tasks can become tedious, fueling a narrative of drudgery. However, if you shift your perspective, perhaps by seeing these tasks as acts of care for your space or as a meditative break from cognitive overload, then they assume a different form. The physical motions might remain the same, but the mental context transforms them into purposeful actions that keep your environment ordered and supportive. Each time you wash a dish, you can notice the warmth of the water, the scent of the soap, the small sense of completion that arises when a chore is done. In this view, the act itself becomes a grounding reminder that you can bring awareness and positive interpretation to even the smallest segments of the day. It is in these small segments that the most sustained transformations often hide. Grand epiphanies and life-altering decisions capture our imagination, but the texture of our days is largely shaped by how we handle the smaller intervals. Those minutes when we're between appointments, or winding down after work, or deciding how to handle a minor annoyance. If in these intervals you practice the art of choosing a constructive stance, the cumulative effect is immense. Rather than waiting for some future milestone or dramatic event to validate your happiness, you learn to find contentment, or at least acceptance, in what is immediately at hand. Over time, you build a reservoir of calm focus, a refuge in the mind that you can draw on when life's waves become turbulent. When the waves do intensify, perhaps through a family crisis, a sudden change in health, or an unexpected career disruption, this internal reservoir proves invaluable. You have already trained yourself to notice your thoughts and choose your responses. You might not be able to avoid the emotional turbulence. Indeed, you will likely feel the shock, the sorrow, or the anxiety, but those feelings do not wholly consume you. A part of your mind stands at a slight distance, observing and reminding you, yes, this is painful, but I still have some power here. I can decide what this pain means for me. I can decide whether it's an invitation to learn, to reach out for support, or to cultivate greater compassion for others going through similar experiences. Even if you move through tears and heartbreak, the sense of gentle agency remains a flickering light, guiding you away from the abyss of total despair. You learn that within pain there can be seeds of wisdom if you choose to water them with an open mind. This approach does not diminish the gravity of severe crises. When faced with life-altering circumstances, a simplistic, positive thinking approach can feel inadequate or even offensive. What you practice is not a denial of gravity, but an insistence on continuing to interpret events in a way that serves growth, dignity, and connection. If you find yourself overwhelmed, seeking external help is not a failure of perspective. Therapy, supportive communities, and medical interventions can all be integral parts of navigating hardship. Your mindset, however, remains the glue that binds these resources together. Even in the darkest times, you can remind yourself, I will allow myself to be helped. I will remain open to the possibility that life can continue to hold meaning. That openness to life's meaning is a radical stance in a world that often measures worth by productivity or tangible success. Deciding your reality implies that even if you are momentarily unproductive by societal standards, perhaps you're resting, healing, or regrouping, you can still cultivate a meaningful viewpoint. In a culture enamored with constant achievement, this can feel counterintuitive, yet it is liberating. Your value does not hinge on hustle alone. It resides also in your capacity to think, to feel, to love, and to orient yourself toward constructive interpretations. Your sense of self grows less dependent on external validation and more anchored in an evolving understanding of who you wish to be. Some people discover that once they commit to this practice, they start noticing opportunities that perfectly align with their reframed vision. It can feel as though the universe is responding to their new outlook. Another explanation is that they have trained themselves to see these openings where before they saw only barriers. Perhaps they initiate more conversations that lead to unexpected collaborations, or they pitch ideas without fear of rejection, or they simply carry themselves with an energy that inspires trust. However it happens, the result is that the once closed door of possibility starts to open a crack. You become an active participant in forging your path, rather than waiting passively for circumstances to improve. This proactive stance frequently extends to how you manage your internal resources, your time, energy, and attention. No longer content to be pulled in every direction by digital distractions or the whims of social pressures, you might start deliberately shaping your schedule. You become mindful of what you consume, not just in terms of food, but also in terms of media, entertainment, and conversations. You recognize that these inputs influence your mindset, so you choose them with care, adopting a more discerning approach toward what enters your mental space. This does not mean living in a bubble. It means knowing that your outlook is precious and needs nurturing, especially if the external world is rife with negativity. Over time, this level of mindfulness becomes second nature, and you find a balance between staying informed about the world's events and guarding your mental health against endless cycles of bad news and sensationalism. But let us not forget that each person's journey in deciding reality will look different. There is no single blueprint that dictates exactly how to transform your thoughts or which coping strategies will resonate most. One person might thrive on daily affirmations, while another finds them ineffective but benefits tremendously from journaling. One person might feel revitalized by regular meditation, while another prefers to process experiences through art or physical movement. The principle remains consistent that you can shape your interpretations, but the methods of strengthening that principle can vary widely. Part of the adventure is discovering which approaches speak to you personally, allowing you to integrate them into a cohesive practice that feels authentic and sustainable. In that spirit, self-exploration becomes an essential aspect of deciding your reality. As you experiment with different techniques, you learn about your own emotional rhythms, your triggers, and your wellsprings of motivation. You might notice that early mornings are a fertile time for positive reflection, whereas late nights might evoke anxious rumination. Or you might notice that your mood lifts when you connect with nature, suggesting that regular walks or hikes can be more than just exercise. They can be spiritual nourishment. These discoveries form a personalized map for navigating your internal landscape. Over time, you refine and update this map as life changes. Perhaps you move to a new city and need to adapt your methods, or you enter a new life stage that demands different priorities. Through it all, the core remains. You have the ability to decide how you approach each challenge and each blessing. That adaptability is especially important when you consider how relationships evolve. People might come and go, or their roles in your life might shift. You might lose touch with close friends due to distance or diverging life paths. In each of these transitions, you can choose how to honor the memories and lessons while recognizing that life's dynamism often brings new connections. If you cling to the narrative that these changes mean you are abandoned or unsuccessful in maintaining bonds, you might miss the opportunity to cultivate fresh friendships. If instead you view transitions as a natural progression, a signal that new forms of growth and companionship await, you keep the door open for what could be. This perspective does not negate the sadness of letting go. It only softens the edges, allowing you to place the loss in a context of ongoing evolution rather than permanent failure. By consistently exercising this adaptability, you begin to realize that uncertainty need not be paralyzing. Each uncertain situation is a space for your agency to shine through. You do not have to know exactly what will happen next to decide that you will meet it with curiosity and resilience. This stance can be especially liberating in moments of personal reinvention, such as career changes, relocations, or shifts in worldview. While the unknown looms large, you hold on to the fact that you can always shape your internal responses. This anchor can transform what might otherwise be a sea of anxiety into a more navigable journey of exploration. Even if the waves get choppy, you know where your compass lies. Yet, we must acknowledge that the world includes systemic barriers that are not easily dissolved by a change in perspective. Socioeconomic hardships, discrimination, and other forms of structural injustice affect countless lives. Deciding your reality does not magically dismantle these barriers. However, it can foster the mental resilience necessary to confront them effectively. By refusing to internalize a sense of unworthiness or perpetual victimhood, individuals can gather the clarity and fortitude to advocate for themselves and for others. They might organize, protest, or seek legal recourse. They can build alliances and nurture hope within communities. While the external systems may take time to change, the internal choice to see oneself as capable of effecting that change, no matter how incremental, can be a vital catalyst. This interplay between internal empowerment and collective action highlights that deciding reality does not have to be a solitary endeavor. Indeed, shared perspectives can shape a cultural climate, influencing entire communities. For instance, If an organization adopts an ethos that embraces mistakes as learning opportunities, the whole team can flourish. Employees no longer hide errors out of fear. Instead, they discuss them openly, leading to swift corrections and innovative solutions. That cultural shift starts with someone's decision, maybe a leader's, maybe a collective's, to interpret failure differently. In a similar vein, families who practice open communication and mutual support can create an environment where each member grows in confidence and kindness. The synergy that arises from collective intention can be profound, reinforcing each individual's practice of deciding their own reality in a supportive context. At a broader level, social change often begins with individuals who refuse to accept oppressive norms. They reframe the collective narrative, insisting on a reality where justice and equality prevail. Their vision may clash with existing structures, but by steadfastly deciding that a better reality is possible, they inspire movements that shift public consciousness. Throughout history, many activists have testified that their unyielding sense of inner conviction was what carried them through immense adversity. They had to believe in the reality they wanted to see, even before it was widely visible. Their stories underscore the transformative power of internal narrative, both personally and collectively. Returning to the personal domain, you might notice that your practice of deciding reality has ripple effects you didn't initially expect. You find yourself more tolerant of diverse viewpoints, perhaps because you've learned firsthand how much a shift in perspective can alter experience. You may approach debates or disagreements with curiosity rather than defensiveness. If I can see my life differently, you might reason, perhaps this other person has valid reasons for their viewpoint that I don't yet understand. This shift can enhance dialogue, reduce tension, and sometimes foster surprising common ground. Even if no agreement emerges, you leave the interaction less strained because you approached it from a stance of inquiry rather than combat. Another subtle yet powerful outcome is the refinement of your sense of purpose. When you take responsibility for shaping your internal world, you often become more intentional about how you spend your time and energy. This can lead to clear personal missions. Maybe you realize you want to mentor youth, or develop a creative skill, or advocate for a cause that matters deeply to you. Purpose is no longer a lofty ideal you wait for. It becomes an evolving outgrowth of your chosen interpretations and the values you decide to honor. By continually deciding your reality in alignment with these values, you reinforce your commitment to them, making your actions more coherent and your life more purposeful. Yet, amid all this positive potential, it's worth reiterating the importance of self-forgiveness. The process of deciding your reality is ongoing, and you are bound to have days or moments when you revert to old patterns. Maybe something triggers an outburst of anger or a spiral of self-doubt, and afterward you feel like you've failed at all your progress. Remember that these moments are part of the journey. Instead of berating yourself, view them as clarifying signals that there is more work to do. You can ask, what triggered this? How can I address it differently next time? Each setback can serve as a refining fire, honing your awareness of where you still need healing or more robust coping strategies. The shift from "I've failed" to "I'm learning" encapsulates the very essence of deciding your reality in a constructive way. Over time, you may even come to welcome certain challenges, not because you enjoy hardship, but because you recognize the growth opportunities embedded within them. This does not mean you seek out suffering. It means that when suffering arrives unbidden, you choose to work with it rather than fight it blindly. You can say, "This difficulty is showing me where I am still rigid," or where I need more compassion, or what I truly prioritize. Such an outlook does not trivialize pain, but places it within a larger framework of personal evolution. This mindset can be particularly illuminating in relationships, where conflicts can highlight personal blind spots and relational dynamics that need attention. If handled with a willingness to learn, conflicts can deepen mutual understanding and strengthen emotional bonds. Of course, all this talk of reframing and growth must be grounded in genuine emotion. There is a difference between authentically choosing to see a silver lining and forcing a veneer of positivity to hide your true feelings. Emotional honesty is integral to a healthy mindset. If you are sad, let yourself feel sadness without labeling it as failure. If you are angry, acknowledge that anger and explore its roots rather than pretending it isn't there. The practice of deciding reality is not about bypassing emotions. It's about engaging them with awareness and guiding them toward outcomes that serve your well-being and integrity. Sometimes, the best decision is to allow yourself a period of raw expression, tears, venting, solitude, before attempting any reframing. By honoring emotions first, you ensure that your mindset work is grounded in authenticity rather than denial. In time, this balanced approach can lead to a deeper emotional maturity. You learn to differentiate between fleeting emotional states and the more enduring narrative you build around them. You might still feel anxiety in certain situations, but you can remind yourself that anxiety is a momentary wave rather than an unchanging characteristic of who you are. This allows you to experience the anxiety without turning it into a full-blown identity or a permanent filter on your reality. It might still be uncomfortable, but it doesn't consume your sense of self. You become more skilled at riding the emotional waves, knowing they will crest and recede, while you remain the ever-adapting observer and interpreter. This observer stance is sometimes referred to as metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking. Through metacognition, you notice not only the content of your thoughts, but also their patterns, triggers, and effects on your mood and actions. Metacognition is a powerful tool in deciding your reality because it gives you a vantage point above the swirl of day-to-day reactivity. When you observe your thoughts in this way, you can decide whether they align with your chosen perspective or whether they need adjusting. Without metacognition, you might be stuck in the stream of automatic thinking, reacting rather than responding. With it, you can pause, reflect, and choose a path that better serves your overall well-being. Alongside metacognition, cultivating a sense of curiosity about your own mind can infuse the process with a sense of wonder. Instead of seeing your mental patterns as burdens, you might come to view them as intriguing phenomena worthy of gentle exploration. You note what triggers certain reactions, how you bounce back from difficulties, and which reframes work best for you. This curiosity approach removes some of the pressure and self-criticism. It frames your internal life as an evolving story, one in which you are both protagonist and narrator, capable of revising the script when it starts to stifle your growth. This creative aspect resonates with the notion that life itself can be approached as a grand work of art. The brushstrokes are your choices, the colors are your emotions, and the canvas is your lived experience. Each day, you add new details to the painting. Some strokes might be bold and confident, others hesitant or muddled. Over time, though, the composition gains depth. What began as rudimentary lines can evolve into a nuanced landscape, reflecting the full range of human emotion and resilience. In this metaphor, no single brushstroke dooms the painting. It can always be integrated, recovered or transformed into something richer. So too with your perspective shifts. Each new decision can recontextualize what came before, offering fresh interpretations that make sense of the entire journey. To sustain such a creative approach, it helps to have a steady practice of gratitude. Genuine gratitude is more than a casual thank you. It is a deliberate focus on what is going well and what is beneficial in your life. It can be as straightforward as noticing you have a comfortable bed, sufficient food, or a safe space to sleep. It can also be deeper, like appreciating a close friend's unwavering support or the opportunity to learn from a difficult experience. Gratitude acts as a counterbalance to the negativity bias that often skews our perception, reminding us that we have access to small gifts and quiet wonders, even when larger troubles loom. This practice of gratitude can be woven into daily life with minimal effort. Some people write down 3 things they're grateful for each night. Others begin the morning with a mental list before they get out of bed. The specific method matters less than the intent. To shift focus toward the positive elements of existence that might otherwise be overshadowed by habitual worry or complaint. Over time, gratitude builds a sturdier foundation for your chosen interpretations because it confirms that goodness and possibility coexist with life's challenges. In weaving together gratitude, metacognition, emotional honesty, and curiosity, you begin to see that deciding your reality is multifaceted. It's like a well-tuned instrument composed of several strings, each producing a unique note that contributes to the harmonic resonance of your inner life. Neglect one string, say, by avoiding genuine emotional processing, and you might find your harmony off-key. Overemphasize another, such as forcing positivity without authenticity, and you risk creating a hollow tune. But when balanced and played together, these elements produce a fuller, more coherent melody that resonates throughout your day. And that resonance does not stay contained within you. It reverberates in your relationships, your work, your creativity, and the subtle energy you bring to a room. People sense when you are genuinely at peace with yourself, when you trust your ability to navigate difficulties, and when you hold an underlying optimism for what each day may bring. They may not articulate it directly, but they respond to it. Sometimes they find it calming and uplifting. Other times, it might challenge them to reconsider their own assumptions. Either way, you become a point of reference for how life can be lived with deliberate intention. You don't have to preach or push your perspective onto others. Your example alone can inspire those who are ready to shift their own narratives. In moments of solitude, you might find yourself reflecting on how far you have come. Perhaps you recall a time when you felt trapped by your circumstances, when the idea of deciding reality seemed either impossible or frivolous. You might marvel at how much has changed, not because the world performed a miraculous turnaround, but because you discovered an internal wellspring of choice. This awareness can bring a sense of humility and wonder. You recognize that while you've done significant work to reshape your mind, much remains open to further refinement. Each day, each year, provides more opportunities to deepen your practice, to peel back layers of conditioning and to approach the core of who you truly want to be. From this vantage, you might also see how deciding your reality fosters a profound sense of interconnectedness. When you stop viewing yourself as a passive victim of external forces, you also start recognizing that others are not merely objects in your story, but sovereign beings in their own right. You become more open to reciprocity, to learning from their perspectives, and to seeing how your choices ripple into their experiences. Compassion and empathy become more natural because you're no longer locked in your own insecurities. This shift can create more harmonious interactions as you both hold space for your own interpretations and respect the interpretations others are working through. Yet, respect does not mean you agree with everyone. It means you acknowledge their humanity and their evolving narrative, even when you stand firm in your own viewpoint. In conflicts, this can manifest as calm assertion rather than aggression, or as constructive dialogue rather than stubborn silence. You might say, "I see that you perceive this situation differently. Can you help me understand why?" rather than jumping to judgment. This type of response not only preserves your peace, but also has the potential to reveal solutions neither party initially saw. In essence, you expand the range of possible outcomes by refusing to lock into a rigid or adversarial script. At times, these expansions can lead to unexpected transformations of long-standing issues. A family rift might begin to mend because one person decided to interpret the tension differently, choosing to see it not as an insoluble feud, but as a misunderstanding that can be gradually clarified. Or a workplace bottleneck might clear up because someone decided to frame the problem as a collective challenge rather than blaming individuals. While not every problem resolves neatly, the willingness to reinterpret difficulties in a fresh light often cracks open doors that remained sealed under a stagnant narrative. When the door opens even a crack, hope has a chance to enter. Hope, in this context, is not blind optimism, but a grounded belief in the possibility of improvement or understanding. It is the faith that efforts to shift perspective and address issues can yield positive outcomes, even if incremental. This sense of hope can be a powerful motivator. It encourages you to continue the work of deciding your reality, because you see it not as an isolated personal exercise, but as part of a broader tapestry of healing and growth. In that tapestry, your single thread might intersect with others, forming patterns of collective uplift that none of you could have achieved alone. And so, in the quiet moments when you scan back over your life, you might see a pattern of pivot points. These are the instances where you could have remained stuck in a defeating narrative, but instead opted for a more life-affirming frame. Each pivot might have felt small at the time, choosing patience instead of anger during an argument, or viewing a setback as a temporary detour rather than an ultimate defeat. But each contributed a stitch to that larger pattern. Over months and years, these stitches form a distinct picture of resilience, reflecting how your internal decisions have guided you through the labyrinth of existence. Occasionally, you might revisit earlier phases of your life with a tinge of regret, wishing you had known then what you know now. But part of the journey is understanding that you could not have fast-forwarded your growth. Every step, including the missteps, shaped the perspective you hold today. Rather than lamenting what was lost, you can use that insight to guide current and future actions. The memory of past limitations can spark empathy for others in similar situations, reminding you that what seems obvious to you now might be utterly foreign to someone still trapped in negative loops. This realization also deepens your gratitude for the mentors, books, philosophies, or serendipitous encounters that nudged you toward deciding your reality. Perhaps it was a conversation with a friend who challenged your habitual negativity, or a teacher who introduced you to mindfulness techniques, or even a random quote that ignited a spark. These influences are like guiding lights that appear at intervals on your path, confirming that you're not alone in the quest for greater awareness. You see, in hindsight, how one small beacon can alter a whole trajectory, provided you're open to receiving it. That openness is crucial. You might have encountered similar messages before, but overlooked them because you were not yet ready to integrate them. Maturity often involves the readiness to receive and apply knowledge in a more thorough way. Thus, you learn that timing, context, and personal readiness all factor into how effectively you can shape your worldview. It fosters a sense of patience, both with yourself and with others who may not be ready yet. You can plant seeds of insight, but you cannot force them to germinate in another person's mind. You can only water them with kindness, hoping they eventually take root. Meanwhile, in your own garden of thought, you continue tending the seeds you've planted, seeds of compassion, self-determination, curiosity, and gratitude. Some sprout quickly, yielding immediate fruits of change. Others lie dormant for a while, only to break the surface after a series of life events creates the right conditions. Over the course of your life, this garden can become lush with virtues and perspectives that sustain you during harsher seasons. And during those harsher seasons, you see how the choices you made in fairer weather have prepared you, at least in part, for the storms. Reflecting on these processes, you might begin to see that deciding your reality transcends the individual level. It's woven into the collective human experience of learning, growing, and adapting. Each of us is engaged, knowingly or not, in interpreting the world around us. Conflicts often arise when we fail to realize that our interpretations are not the sole truth, but rather one lens among many. Peaceful coexistence can thrive when enough people recognize that they have power over their lenses, and that these lenses can be refined to foster understanding rather than division. In that sense, deciding reality is both a personal liberation and a communal responsibility. In practical terms, you might decide to lead by example in everyday interactions. Rather than proclaiming your philosophy outright, you simply embody it. If a coworker complains constantly, you respond by gently offering a different angle, or by listening empathetically without reinforcing the negativity. If a family member insists that a situation is hopeless, you might share a story of a similar situation that found resolution. These are subtle acts, but over time they sow the idea that there's more than one way to face life's difficulties. Your consistency in these acts can gradually shift group dynamics, planting the seed of possibility in places where resignation once reigned. Indeed, consistency is the key to meaningful transformation. A single moment of insight is precious, but it's the repeated application of that insight that etches it into the foundations of your identity. Through daily, sometimes hourly, decisions to frame your reality in a constructive way, you lay down neural and behavioral pathways that become second nature. As these pathways strengthen, your capacity to hold on to a positive, growth-oriented viewpoint, even under stress, increases. Eventually, what was once a deliberate, sometimes cumbersome effort becomes a more fluid expression of who you are. With that fluidity, you might notice that people start approaching you for advice or support. They sense a stability and clarity in your presence. This is not about being perfect or immune to hardship. It's about consistently demonstrating that hardship does not define your entire reality. You become, in a modest but real sense, a beacon of resilience. When this happens, you can share your perspective and the practices that helped you, always emphasizing that each individual must find their unique path. Being open about your own struggles and the lessons learned can demystify the notion that deciding reality is something only special or privileged people can do. Of course, with increased visibility, sometimes comes the risk of ego inflation. The moment you start seeing yourself as the guru who has all the answers, you risk closing off further growth. This journey requires humility. A healthy perspective recognizes that no matter how far you've come, there is always more to learn. You remain open to feedback, to new methods, and even to the possibility that some of your current interpretations may need revisiting. The humility to remain a learner keeps your perspective flexible and dynamic. When people see that humility, it reinforces their trust in the authenticity of your approach. Authenticity, in turn, fuels deeper connections. Whether in personal friendships or professional networks, people gravitate toward those who exhibit genuine sincerity. An honest acknowledgement of your own vulnerability, coupled with a consistent choice to interpret life constructively, creates a space where others feel safe to examine their own patterns. Over time, this can lead to a supportive community where mutual respect and encouragement reign, each person contributing their own insight to the collective pool of wisdom. In such communities, shared accountability can flourish. Friends might gently remind each other to question negative assumptions or to re-examine stress-inducing beliefs. This is not policing someone's thoughts, but offering a supportive nudge when someone forgets their agency. In turn, you might receive similar reminders when you are caught in a low moment. The synergy can be remarkable, fostering an environment where personal development is seen as a communal endeavor rather than a lonely climb. Looking further down the timeline of life, you may eventually find yourself in a stage where you have the opportunity to mentor younger generations, children, nieces, nephews, students, interns. You can plant the seeds of deciding reality early, teaching them that their minds are malleable and powerful, that setbacks are not the end of the story, and that empathy can transform conflicts. Imagine how a child's self-concept might develop differently if, from a young age, they learn that their perspective holds creative power. They might approach school challenges with curiosity rather than fear, or handle social dynamics with kindness rather than insecurity. This does not shield them from all pain or mistakes, but it equips them with tools for resilience that can serve them throughout their life. Meanwhile, you continue refining your own narrative because learning never ends. You may read new books that challenge your understanding or encounter people who have insights you had not considered. This keeps you from becoming dogmatic or stagnating in a single framework. The practice of deciding reality is fluid, accommodating new discoveries and reinterpretations. Some concepts you once held tightly may evolve or even fall away if they no longer serve your growth. This constant evolution mirrors nature, where living organisms adapt continuously to changing conditions, always striving toward equilibrium and harmony. One day, in a reflective mood, you might consider the legacy you're leaving behind. Legacy is often thought of in terms of material wealth or professional achievements, but deciding reality points to a subtler, more pervasive legacy. The example you set in how you lived. Did you embody compassion? Did you face difficulties with courage and openness? Did you help others see their own capacity for growth? These questions measure a different sort of wealth, one that transcends the tangible. It's a wealth of influence rooted in how your mindset shaped not just your path, but also the paths of those you touched. In these reflections, you might sense that your personal narrative is intertwined with the larger human narrative. We are all characters in the ongoing story of humanity, each shaping the collective plot in ways big or small. Deciding your reality is, in essence, deciding what kind of character you will be. Someone who succumbs to despair, or someone who nurtures hope, someone who isolates, or someone who connects, someone who interprets life as a series of defeats, or someone who sees it as an unfolding tapestry of lessons and potential. Each decision radiates outward, influencing the shared storyline in ways seen and unseen. Such understanding can fill you with a mixture of responsibility and wonder. Responsibility because you realize your decisions matter, at least in the context of your immediate sphere, and wonder because you see how deeply interconnected all these personal choices can be. It is both humbling and empowering. Humbling because you are just one among billions, yet empowering because your single flame of perspective can still illuminate corners of the collective consciousness. At this stage, it becomes clear that deciding your reality is not a quick fix or a self-help hack. It is a long-haul commitment, an ongoing dance with life's complexities. There is room for rest in that dance, moments of pause and reflection. But the music never truly ends. Challenges will keep surfacing, emotions will keep ebbing and flowing, relationships will keep evolving. Each cycle invites you to refine your sense of agency once more, to adjust your steps in accordance with the changing rhythm of existence. And perhaps that is the most profound realization, that no matter where you are in this journey, whether just discovering the notion that you can shape your interpretations or standing in awe of decades of mindful practice, you are continually in motion. There is no final destination where you can say, "I have fully decided my reality once and for all." Instead, you live in a state of aware responsiveness, meeting each day, each hour, with the question, how can I interpret this moment to align with my highest values, my deepest compassion, and my unyielding will to grow? The answer to that question evolves alongside you, providing a lifelong tapestry of purposeful living, rich in texture and depth. So you carry on, breathing into each moment with the knowledge that your interpretations are your truest domain. You honor the times when you falter, treating them as invitations to remember the power you hold. You celebrate the times when you rise above old patterns, acknowledging that each triumph is a testament to the inner work you have done. You share what you have learned when the opportunity arises, knowing that the seed you plant in another person's consciousness might one day blossom when conditions are right. Through it all, you cultivate an inner smile, a gentle, abiding sense of presence and gratitude for the remarkable gift of being able to decide, to choose, to create meaning. That smile may not always be visible on your face, but it dwells in your spirit, buoying you in difficulties and illuminating moments of joy. It is the silent expression of a truth you now carry, that within the swirling currents of life you have discovered, claimed, and nurtured the power to shape your mental landscape, your emotional responses, and ultimately the reality you experience. And that power, once awakened, continues to guide you toward the better angels of your nature, reaffirming day after day that, indeed, you have both the right and the responsibility to decide your reality in every breath you take. As the journey stretches on, you might find yourself drawn to quiet reflection about the interplay of freedom and destiny. Some people see life as predetermined by fate or by rigid circumstances, while others champion free will as absolute. Yet, perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. We may not choose our birth or our fundamental biology or the large-scale socio-political forces that shape our world. But in the midst of all that, there remains a crucial space, our interpretation, where we exercise a freedom that no external power can fully revoke. When we occupy that space with awareness and intention, we align with the deepest potential of human consciousness, to respond rather than merely react, to transform rather than merely endure, and to participate wholeheartedly in the mystery of being alive. This mystery, like a vast ocean, envelops us in its depths. We can explore only so much, Yet each new discovery can alter our perspective. Deciding reality becomes our vessel, enabling us to navigate, to dive, to surface, and to keep questioning. Will we ever map the entire ocean of experience? Likely not. But we can refine our ability to sail, to chart new courses, and to return with tales that might inspire others to venture forth. In this sense, each person's life can become a testament to what is possible when the power of interpretation is harnessed with courage and compassion. And this final notion, compassion, rings with particular resonance. Compassion for ourselves as we stumble and strive, and compassion for others who are also entangled in their own webs of belief. Compassion arises naturally when we see that everyone is contending with the challenge of interpreting reality, whether consciously or unconsciously. This universal endeavor transcends borders, cultures, and individual differences, reminding us that we share a fundamental human task. That shared task can be a bridge across misunderstandings, a starting point for empathy in a fractured world. Yes, the world will remain fractious, complicated, and often unjust. But in deciding our reality, we choose not to surrender the inner sphere to that turmoil. Instead, we cultivate a seedbed of understanding and resolve that can withstand and respond to external chaos. From that seedbed emerges the potential for wise action, creative problem-solving, and heartfelt connection, qualities that can, in their own way, ripple outward into broader social structures. What begins as an internal shift might become a communal shift, and maybe, in time, a cultural shift. But that is not guaranteed or owed. It is simply an unfolding possibility that each act of personal transformation carries within it. All of this suggests that deciding your reality is both simple and profound. Simple in that it boils down to noticing your thoughts and consistently choosing more constructive interpretations. Profound in that it touches every corner of your life and can reshape your relationships, goals, and sense of identity. Perhaps the most vital takeaway is that this is not a privilege reserved for a select few. While circumstances do differ, and certain mental or emotional conditions can complicate the process, the seed of agency remains present in all but the most extreme cases. Even small glimpses of it can spark a revolution in how we live and love. When you come to the end of a day that tested your resilience, you might look back and see moments you wish you had handled differently. Instead of dwelling on regret, you can interpret those moments as signposts, guiding you to refine your practice. You might resolve to approach similar triggers with a different tactic tomorrow. By constantly embedding lessons into your interpretation of daily events, you create a feedback loop that supports steady improvement. This dynamic momentum prevents you from stagnating in disillusionment. Instead, you become a living testament to the adaptability and capacity for growth that define the human spirit. That adaptability extends beyond mental frameworks. It can also shape your physical habits, how you care for your body, the routines you adopt, and the environments you choose. Once you recognize you can decide your outlook, it often follows that you can decide to support that outlook with tangible changes. Perhaps you design your living space to reflect calm and inspiration, or you adjust your diet and exercise to better support mental clarity. Each choice becomes an expression of your reality-making capacity. Through consistent application, the outer structures of your life start to mirror and reinforce the inner structures of your mind. At a certain point, you may sense a seamless alignment between your internal decisions and your external actions. In that alignment, life feels more fluid, not necessarily easier, but more coherent. Even obstacles become experiences that affirm your sense of being fully engaged in the process of living. You realize that while you cannot guarantee outcomes, you can guarantee effort and intention. This knowledge frees you from the crippling fear of failure. After all, the ultimate measure of your journey isn't found in an external scoreboard. It's found in whether you remain true to the principles that guide you. These principles are deeply personal. They may revolve around love, creativity, wisdom, service, or some combination thereof. Deciding your reality means continually calibrating your interpretations to align with these core values. In moments of tension or temptation, you can ask yourself, does this choice reflect the kind of person I aspire to be? That self-questioning fosters integrity. Even if no one else sees your decision, you know you're acting from a space of alignment rather than compulsion or despair. The reward is an internal resonance that feels both solid and expansive, like standing on bedrock with a wide horizon. As your trust in this process grows, you might also become more receptive to synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that suggest a harmonious interplay between inner intention and outer events. While some attribute these to spiritual forces and others to the psychology of selective attention, the key point is that your mindset primes you to notice and appreciate them. When a chance meeting or an unexpected opportunity perfectly aligns with your goals, you can interpret it as confirmation that your energy and focus are attuned to fertile possibilities. This doesn't negate the importance of perseverance and effort, but it imbues the journey with a sense of wonder and gratitude. In time, you come to see that deciding your reality is, at its heart, a daily expression of love. Love for your own capacity to grow, love for the people you interact with, and love for the sheer wonder of being alive at all. This love isn't sentimental or naive. It coexists with the recognition of life's harshness, yet it refuses to let that harshness define the entire story. It shapes a worldview that acknowledges pain but insists on empathy, that recognizes setbacks but insists on resilience. By consistently affirming this loving stance, you make room for a life that, though imperfect, brims with the essence of what it means to be fully human. That fullness of humanity becomes palpable in your interactions. You might find yourself listening more attentively to others, showing patience for their struggles, and offering genuine encouragement. You might extend small acts of kindness, like a warm smile or a thoughtful note, not out of obligation, but from a sincere desire to add a positive brushstroke to someone else's day. These gestures are not forced or performative. They arise naturally from the interpretation that life is enriched by mutual support and understanding. Over time, such choices accumulate, influencing the cultural microclimate around you, a household, a team, a group of friends, and possibly rippling further than you realize. And so, in this grand interplay of choice, perspective, and shared existence, you continue to weave your life's tapestry. Each thread is a moment of awareness, each knot a lesson learned, each shimmering detail a reflection of compassion or joy. You cannot control the entire design, but you can guide your own contribution with purposeful care, and that in turn invites others to do the same, creating a larger design that is more collaborative, more hopeful, and more attuned to the better angels of our nature. When you finally take time to rest, perhaps in the stillness before sleep or in a meditative pause during the day, you can feel this tapestry surrounding you like a comforting mantle. The patterns of your choices, both big and small, enfold you in the knowledge that you have been a conscious participant in your own story. And as you drift into dreams or move on to the next task, you carry within you a quiet assurance that no matter what tomorrow brings, you will meet it with the empowering truth that your mind is, and always has been, yours to guide. By embracing that truth, you reinforce the most liberating message of all, that although the world and its changes may be vast beyond measure, you retain sovereignty over how you perceive, interpret, and respond. In that sovereignty lies the essence of free will, an abiding grace that transcends circumstance, fosters empathy, and underpins the resilience that humanity has demonstrated throughout its history. It is our birthright, and yet it often remains a hidden gem until we choose to unearth it. When we do, we discover that the luminous power to decide our reality has been available all along, waiting patiently for us to acknowledge and cultivate it with reverence and resolve. So you walk forth, carrying that gem in your pocket, a symbol of the agency that will continue to guide your steps. And each time you encounter a crossroad, a storm, or a moment of unanticipated beauty, you can reach for it, remembering that no matter how the external scene shifts, there is a steady, glowing core within you that shapes meaning. This core, once awakened, remains with you through every season of life, a loyal companion in the odyssey of choosing day by day how you will engage the world. Indeed, in the final analysis, what else could true freedom be but the unshakable knowledge that your perspective, your narrative, and your hope are yours to nurture and to share? That knowledge, nurtured consistently, becomes wisdom, and wisdom, lived authentically, becomes an offering you extend to the world around you, an offering of patience, insight, creativity, and love. Each morning, as you greet the day, you renew the vow to practice that wisdom, and each evening you reflect on how you've honored or faltered in keeping it. These reflections are not ends in themselves, but stepping stones in an ever-evolving journey. The outer shape of that journey may differ for each person, but the inner essence remains universal. The realization that our minds are theaters of infinite possibility, and that with mindful discipline and compassion, we can orchestrate the scenes we enact there. No final conclusion is necessary, for this process does not end, but you can rest assured that you walk a path that countless others, past and present, also tread. Their footprints, recorded in texts or passed through oral tradition, remind you that you are not inventing something new, but engaging an ancient human endeavor, learning to master the interplay between external realities and internal narratives. You move forward, joined by an invisible community of fellow travelers who, like you, have discovered that within the quiet recesses of the mind lies the power to shape, to heal, to unite, and to transcend. And so, with the soft weight of that collective wisdom at your back, you carry on. You trust in the practice, you trust in the daily discipline, you trust in the power of even the smallest reframing to light up a corner of your life. And you trust, most importantly, in your own capacity to decide. Moment after moment, breath after breath, you affirm that capacity with humility and with gratitude. And in that affirmation, you find the subtle, luminous texture of a life truly lived. Not as a passive narrative unfolding despite you, but as an ever-evolving masterpiece co-created by your conscious mind, your open heart, and the ceaseless currents of existence.